I got a thumbs up. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate everyone being here tonight. Our first order of business will be approval of the official agenda with consented items. Do we have anyone who wishes to make any changes to the agenda or the consented items? Alderman Carver?
No, ma'am.
Alderman Sistrunk?
No, ma'am.
Alderman Rupp?
No, Mayor.
Alderman Brooks?
Yeah, it's my understanding that the minutes from the August 3rd meeting, Mr. Latimer has reviewed those, and those are okay?
Yes, sir.
And if that's the case, then I'd like to add those to consent.
Okay, let me see. Anyone have an objection to putting the additional?
What was the issue of those being,
They just hadn't been completed yet.
that was it? Nothing you were looking at in particular?
Yeah, so the way it works is Lisa usually gives me a first draft and I edit those and then I double check the edits. And so as of the work session, the edits have not been double checked, but they've been double checked by now.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other, no concerns? All right, we'll put that, without objection, we'll put those on consent. Anyone else? Alderman Bacon?
No, Mayor.
Vice Mayor Perkins?
No, ma'am, Mayor, thank you.
Alderman Vaughn?
No, ma'am, thank
All right, thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the official agenda with the consented item as changed.
So moved.
I have a motion from Alderman Rupp. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Brooks. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. I will read the consented items. Consideration of the minutes of the August 3rd, 2021 regular meeting of the Mayor and the Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville. Consideration of the minutes of the August 13th, 2021 work session of the Mayor and the Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville. Consideration of the minutes of the August 17th, 2021 special call meeting of the Mayor and the Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville. Consideration of the minutes of the August 17th, 2021 recess meeting of the Mayor and the Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville. Moving over to under Mayor's business, we have consideration of extending the proclamation of a local emergency due to the COVID-19 virus for an additional 30 days. We have consideration of soliciting proposals for the City of Starkville fiscal year 2021 audit. Under board business, we have consideration of the approval of the Skybridge easement, maintenance, and removal agreement between the City of Starkville and the Vista Starkville LLC. Under department business, airport, we have request approval to accept the MDOT multimodal grant, MM-0068-1022, to construct a corporate hangar with apron taxiway in the amount of $391,204 at George M. Bryan Field with a match of $209,216. Number two is request approval to accept the Clearwater Consultants work authorization regarding the MDOT MM-0068-1022 grant. Number three is request approval to enter into a license agreement with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Office of Atmospheric Research that will allow NOAA contractors access to a selected area of the airport property to set up a weather station at George M. Bryan Field. Number four is request approval to purchase a pre-owned scissor lift 24-26 feet from United Rentals, the lower of two quotes, for maintaining airport buildings in the amount of $7,175. Number five is request approval to accept the Terry Stidham construction agreement for improvements to the AWAS access road south of Greta Lane on George M. Bryan Field. Under engineering, we have approval of Neil Schaefer as the preferred consultant to provide the build grant construction, engineering, and inspection services, and authorization for the mayor to negotiate and execute an engineering consultant contract in accordance with Mississippi procurement procedures and the local public agencies LPA guidelines as outlined by the Mississippi Department of Transportation. Number two is consideration of authorizing the advertisement for proposals for the fiscal year 2021-22 street right-of-way trimming services. Under Finance Administration, number two is request approval of the source of supply bids for the street and sanitation for the period of October 1, 2021 through September 30th, 2022. Under the Fire Department, we have request permission to apply for a Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Grant Program awarded by U.S. Department of Transportation, Pipeline, and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration in a reimbursable amount of $5,200 with a 20% match by the city to be used for handheld radios. Under Human Resources, we have request authorization to hire Taylor Ingram as a desk attendant in the Parks and Recreation Department. Number 2 is request authorization to hire Wesley Howell as water treatment operator in the Starkville Utilities Department under the Drinking Water Division. Number 3 is request authorization to hire Jacob Nelson as an apprentice lineman in the Starkville Utilities Department. 4 is request authorization to hire Jalen Davis and DeMarcus King as maintenance workers in Sanitation and Environmental Services Department. 5 is request authorization to hire Michael Mosley as a driver in the Sanitation and Environmental Services Department. Number 6 is request authorization to hire Odie Avery as an assistant planner in the Community Development Department. Number 7 is request authorization to hire Peyton Poole as an entry-level police officer in the Starkville Police Department. 8, request authorization to hire Ronald Hanna as a reserve police officer in the Starkville Police Department. Number 9 is request authorization to hire Zach Boren as an entry-level firefighter and Ian Garrard as a certified firefighter in the Starkville Fire Department. Number 10 is request approval of the promotion of Carl Griffin to the rank of sergeant in the Starkville Fire Department. And number 11 is request authorization to hire Anna Hall as a part-time customer service representative in the Starkville Utilities Department. Under police, we have request approval to declare the listed 2006 Jeep Commander, VIN number 1JBHHY8KV 6C248602 as surplus property and authorization to be sold on govdeals.com to the best or highest bidder. Under code enforcement, we have consideration of calling for a public hearing under Mississippi Code annotated 21-1911 to determine whether the structures located at 305 Everglade Avenue, Building 27, with parcel number 118K-00-016.00 is a menace to public health, safety, and welfare of the community. B, consideration of calling for a public hearing under Mississippi Code annotated 21-1911 to determine whether the structures located at 305 Everglade Avenue, Building 16, with the parcel number 118K-00-00-016.00 is a menace to the public health, safety, and welfare of the community. C is consideration of calling for a public hearing under Mississippi Code annotated 21-1911 to determine whether the structure located at 305 Everglade Avenue, Building 19, with the parcel number 118K-00-016.00 is a menace to the public health, safety, and welfare of the community. And D is consideration of calling for a public hearing under Mississippi Code annotated 21-1911 to determine whether the structures located at 305 Everglade Avenue, Building 6, with parcel number 118K-00-016.00 is a menace to the public health, safety, and welfare of the community. Under utilities, we have request authorization to purchase the replacement for electric division bucket truck number 19 from state-approved contract Sourcewell in the amount of $237,270. Number 2 is request authorization to accept the lowest quote from Nesco Electrical Distributors to purchase 75 flame-resistant long-sleeve shirts for the electric division in the amount of $6,410.25. Number 3 is request authorization for Covington Sales and Service, Inc., the only authorized VACCon dealer for the state of Mississippi, to conduct necessary repairs to the Water Division large vacuum truck number 132 in the amount not to exceed $13,000. Number 4 is request authorization to declare 80 1,600-foot sticks of 8-inch SDR-26 gasket joint PVC 1120 as surplus and to auction on GovDeals. Number 5 is request authorization to declare the Electric Division underground pulling machine, VIN number IT1T92C14127S268033 as surplus and to auction on GovDeals, and authorization to purchase a replacement underground pulling machine from the state-approved contract Sourcewell in the amount of $134,275. And last but not least, number 6, request authorization to accept the lowest quote from Vacuum Truck Sales and Service, LLC for a T66 camera tractor and adjustable camera connection for the Water Division in the amount of $15,120. And that concludes the consent items on the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor.
You are very welcome. All right, next we have announcements and comments, and first the mayor's comments. And I had one thing, and I see Mr. Taylor here, so I may be stealing his thunder, but I was going to make the announcement about the RAMP, which is the Rental Assistance for Mississippians program, September 14th at level 3 from 4 to 7 is something, and I think there are flyers out and about, but anyone, this is for not only tenants, but it's also for landlords. It's rental assistance. They'll pay for not just rent, but utilities as well, I believe, for about a year. So for those who might be interested or know someone who might be interested, please pass that along, and we will also put that on our website and maybe put a flyer up. Mr. Taylor, you get a chance? Okay. And aside from that, I don't have anything other than I'm glad we won on Saturday, however by little it was. All right, Board of Aldermen comments. Alderman Carver.
I was going to say, first of all, I know for every person represented here tonight, there's probably that many more outside. Would we have opportunity, or they would have opportunity to come up and speak during citizen comments if they're a citizen of Starkville? I know we got time constraints, but some of the individuals out there requested that they can come in and speak.
They can, and our fire marshal, Mr. McCurdy, will help escort them in and out as we have, as people come.
I'm just suggesting, I mean, normally it's 3 minutes, citizen comments. I don't want this to run into midnight. I don't think anybody does here, but I think everybody should have some type of opportunity to speak if they came out here and standing outside and inside. And secondly, I would say just 2 businesses I saw pop up on Highway 12 today. We do have a Smoothie King in Starkville. Ron is out the road, and then also Captain D's came back and revisited us out down by the Walmart in the town, the western end. But just those 2 businesses are now open. I saw them opening and treating customers today, so thank you.
Are they both in your ward?
Absolutely. Alderman Sistrunk.
Nothing, thank you.
Alderman Rupp.
Well, I want to welcome everyone as well. I wish we had this kind of interesting turnout all the time, and it's good to have everyone here and folks outside, and I think we have an audience online as well. All your comments are welcome, and I just hope that when we make them, we remember that at the end of the day, we're all still neighbors. And I would include the board on that as well, but it's good to have you all.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Brooks.
No, Mayor, thank you.
All right, Alderman Beatty.
Mayor, I want to echo Alderman Carver's sentiments about letting people speak. And if let everybody who wants to speak tonight on all the different things that various things people come speak about, be able to do that. And if they run over a half minute or a minute, something like that, that's, we just need to get people out. Thank you.
If the board wants to suspend the rules for 3 minutes, we could certainly look to doing that. Thank you. Alderman, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Perkins.
No comment, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman Vaughn.
No comment, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, and with that, citizens' comments is next. So we have an opportunity, and unless the board does wish to suspend the rules, normally it's 3 minutes. The city clerk will time it, and so we'll try to give you a heads up of anything.
Does that need to be put in form of motion to allow somebody
It
to go
does,
over?
it does, if you'd like to do that.
I would make a motion that under the extenuating circumstances of some of the things that want to be addressed tonight, that if someone goes over a minute, can exceed 3 minutes, we don't want anybody to get on a, too long a thing, but if they exceed 3 minutes, that we not cut them off.
Okay, do you have a motion for a time, or are you just wanting it to be?
Anybody suggestion on that? 5 minutes, 4 minutes? Anybody be?
It's your motion,
5,
Alderman, whatever you'd like to do.
5 minutes.
Okay, so I have a motion to suspend the 3 minutes and allow it to be 5 minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, Alderman Carver, did that come from you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify, and let me restate it, that instead of 3 minutes, that it become a 5-minute citizen comment period. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, let's do that one at a time, because I think I can know what it was, but let's do that. If you would, please answer yea or nay as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Nay.
Alderman Rupp.
Nay.
Alderman Brooks.
Nay.
Alderman Beatty.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Nay.
All right, by motion of 5 to 2, we will be remaining at 3 minutes. So we will keep track and make sure that you have the full 3 minutes, but we will ask that you adhere to that. So thank you so much. All right, citizens' comments are intended for any topic that you wish to talk to us about. It is not normally a give and take. just so everyone knows, it is more a sharing of your information to us. And so if you would please, Mr. Turner, nice to see you this evening.
Good evening, my name is Alvin Turner for the record, Ward 7 for the record. To the mayor, to the police chief, to the fire chief, and I'm a member of the NACP. We citizens, we it's sort of can't find the words to express. But we also would like to say hats off to the Lake Department and the Police Department after what happened last Wednesday when the lights went out. That y'all kept us safe. That we want to thank you for that. And hoping that that don't happen again no time soon. Lights out everywhere, even the traffic light. But we're glad that the police department helped us out. They was on point, and hats off to police department and the electric department on trying to get everything back up and running. The bad news is that citizens, the governor is making it rough on everyone. And if you're an elected official, we don't need for any more stress than what we already under. And if the governor chooses to continue to stress us out, we need for him to step down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Yes, ma'am. Anyone else? Come on up.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
Aldermen, and community. My name is Yolanda Haddix, President of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, which is NAACP. And I'm here with a few of my other community partners. And this is we're gonna talk about the issues over we say Chinatown or Catherine Street. I'm gonna give you a little backstory, and then I'm gonna let Kate come back and give us some more information. The citizens over there they received an eviction notice, and they were actually to vacate their properties. However, we've gotten several comments that they say that, well, how they're living, this is going on. However, those citizens inherited those problems. Those apartment buildings have been that way for years. I've been over there several times, I visit, and I've seen the dilapidation of the apartments. So now they are being evicted and asked to leave with nowhere to go. So what we are asking is that the community, the landlord, elected officials to be supportive. We're not asking to allow people to stay somewhere that a private owner owns. We're just saying that be supportive so we are able to help the young people, the tenants to find housing. Also, the tenants were not evicted or asked to leave because they did not pay their rent. Most of those tenants were up to date on their rent payments. So we're saying this, someone bought a property, which we said, that's fine. But to ask someone to leave, which they are underserved community already, and do not have alternate place to go to. So we're saying is that give us some time, support us on this initiative to find ways to place these tenants. And we, NAACP, along with Starkville Strong, we are working diligently to find housing. And remember, it is a community issue. It's just not NAACP issue, Starkville Strong issue. It is our community. And if they're asked to vacate or evict to leave those apartments, where are they going? So it's going to be somebody else's problem. So work with us, and we work with you guys, and hopefully we'll find some place for these tenants to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Kate Van Halsema, and I'm, for the record, a resident of Ward 5. I am here on behalf of Starkville Strong in my capacity as the organization's secretary to speak with you all briefly about, as Ms. Haddix explained, the issue on Catherine Street, as well as about housing insecurity in Starkville in general. I realize that some may consider my being here tonight making sort of a public plea to the city as an antagonistic, but at Starkville Strong we see it differently. We believe that our city is only as strong and stable as the most vulnerable among us, and we're here tonight to invite the city, publicly and officially, to please join us and the numerous faith communities and individual citizens already involved in strengthening our community from the ground up. I also realize that the city faces very real financial constraints, and I want to make sure that I acknowledge that. But I think it's important to remember that strength doesn't always come from money. In my opinion, and I believe that the board of Starkville Strong shares this opinion, strength also comes from transparency, accountability, and connection with others. On behalf of Starkville Strong, I'm here tonight, first of all, to ask the city, all aldermen, and the mayor and the vice mayor, to please sign this letter of support that we've drafted, asking that we intend to ask the Board of Supervisors to please allow us to use the storm shelter to temporarily house evicted tenants, particularly those with small children who are still waiting to find more permanent housing. I have a copy of this letter for each of you to look at if you'd like. Second, I'm here to ask the city to please create an ad hoc committee to address the housing insecurity and homelessness in Starkville in general. I'm asking the city to develop and enforce clear and transparent habitability standards for all residences, regardless of income or income status. We're here to ask the city to extend more tax credit incentives to landlords in Starkville to encourage them to participate in affordable housing programs, similar to those tax incentives that have already been extended to private businesses and corporations. I'd like to ask Mayor Spruill, please respectfully, to commit to opening a dialogue with mayors of other cities that have dealt with similar problems, particularly the mayor of Tupelo, to help gather information regarding best practices for addressing homelessness and those at risk of homelessness on a city level. And finally, to ask all of you for your support to acknowledge and continue this important conversation with Starkville Strong and other organizations in our shared goal of building a better community for each and every person in Starkville. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can I interject for 1 second?
Alderman Carver.
Well, this might be the only time I might talk about something beside the mask and everything or something related, but there is definitely a need growing in the city of Starkville for a homeless shelter. I think anybody that sits on this side of the table realizes that we get a lot of requests. I've been approached by a few individuals in the last few days, actually. I had a gentleman approach me last night in my yard, just started talking to him and said, "Where are you going?" And he didn't have a place to go. I'm just telling you, there's a need that I think this is highlighting some of this in the paper, but there's individuals that already live here that are struggling with homelessness. So with something, as the town grows, we'll have some of these bigger city issues. So this is one of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
If
Thank
I
you,
may,
ma'am.
I'm sorry if my time is up.
Your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Mayor, I'd like to comment also on that.
Yes, sir.
There's something else that's kind of it's elephant in the room kind of thing that I think has happened. We don't have enough code enforcement in the city. That's current. We have one code enforcement person. We have another person that's being hired, been trained, also being trained, cross-trained as a police officer. But these departments didn't get bad overnight. This has been a lack of code enforcement, inspection and stuff in the city of Starkville for years. That's caused these things to get into dilapidated, deplorable condition that they're in. I would like for the city, for us to going forward, to understand and commit ourselves for code enforcement to the point where we don't let properties get to the point. We enforce our codes, our building code and the codes that we have on the books to keep, hopefully get properties from getting in the deteriorated, deplorable condition that the Catherine Street apartments have gotten in. It's this all kind of hit at one time, and it's been unfortunate for the residents over there. And this place is tucked away. It's between two neighborhoods, and I don't know whether it's just been forgotten. But over the years, but there's been. We need to do that, and from here going forward, we need to inspect properties, and we need to make sure that the owners hold their feet to the fire, make sure that that where there's non-compliance on codes, that they keep buildings up to code in the city of Starkville, where we don't get this type of rundown housing units and this bad living conditions for people in the city of Starkville. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Citizens' comments? Anyone else? Any?
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. For the record, my name is Bert Montgomery. I live in Ward 5. Alderman Beatty is my alderman. I wish to speak in support of Alderman Beatty's proposal and that he will make, I guess, and any others that the board can do, anything, other policies the board can enact to put in place to help protect the general health of our community. During this crucial moment when our healthcare workers, our hospital, our professional medical staff are overwhelmed, as is the medical system and the healthcare system across our state. I will defer to a few others who are here who can speak more to the details, but I just want to speak as a pastor of a local congregation. I know that several of us share in our Christian faith together, that our ultimate responsibility is to love our neighbors as ourselves, and that means giving up and sacrificing some things that we would want for ourselves in order for the good of others. And with that, our church has been closing every service for the last several months with this verse from Galatians, which reminds us, let us not grow weary in doing what is right. And we're all tired of COVID. I know we are all tired of COVID, but let us not grow weary in doing what is right. But whenever we have the opportunity, let us work for the good of all. I believe you'll have that opportunity this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Anyone else?
Hello, I'm Emily Landrum. We've met before. I'm a family physician here in Starkville, and here tonight just to give you an update on COVID in our city and our state. We're in a dire situation again, I think worse off than we have been in the entire length of the pandemic so far. So I hope that you'll consider some measures to help the citizens of Starkville and our surrounding areas that come to Starkville to visit and shop and, utilize our businesses to do something that can help decrease the COVID impact that we're seeing. COVID has the potential to continue to cause huge devastation in our community, not only from the standpoint of unnecessary death, but prolonged health effects that people can experience after having COVID, but also lost work and revenue, people that can't, be part of the community, kids that can't go to school, and that has an impact on everything across the board. Here in Oktibbeha County, the most updated vaccination rate is 44%, and we rank about number 17 in the state for number of cases. So for vaccinations to have a really significant impact at decreasing our COVID transmission and positivity rates, we need to have at least 80%, if not probably more, especially if we start to see some other of these variants begin to pop up and creep into our community. So my biggest request would be to implement some sort of a mask policy. I know, like he said, everybody is tired of COVID, everybody's tired of wearing a mask. But our hospital is stretched very thin, not only from the standpoint of staffing and their morale, but just beds. We don't have any ICU beds. My last check earlier today was one other bed in the entire hospital that's available. The hospitals throughout the state are full. And so there's just a huge impact on a large majority of our citizens from that standpoint, not to mention those who may go to a hospital for something not COVID related and not be able to get the care that they need. Mask policies would help us stay in school, among other things, work and those types of things. So I think whatever you guys may consider, we could certainly look into a hybrid policy like what Oxford has, but I think something really needs to be implemented to help us decrease the cases. Because like I said before, we are worse off than we were at the beginning of the year. Our positivity rate now is just over 20%, and at the height that we were in January, we were only at about 18%. So I just would stress that importance and hope that you could help us do everything that we can, including masking, vaccinations, distancing, hygiene, education for the community to help us decrease the impact that COVID is having.
Thank you, Dr. Landry.
Thank you.
Dr. Landry, can I ask a
Yes.
couple
Yes.
questions? Tell me about the hybrid. I read a little bit about the Oxford mandate. Tell me what's hybrid, or tell me about there, what you know about there.
So from what I understand that Oxford is doing, businesses have a little bit more leeway to require masks. So if people are vaccinated and can show proof of vaccine, they're not necessarily required to wear a mask when they're in, whatever business there is. I don't know if they have a specific distinction between places that are considered, necessary or like grocery stores
Essential.
and essential businesses. But certainly I think the biggest impact that a mask policy could have is in settings like restaurants and bars, where certainly somewhere like Starkville, that's where we're going to see the biggest transmission. And so, I think that needs to be taken into consideration if a hybrid policy is considered.
While you're here, Counselor, you live in Oxford. Tell me, do you know, tell us what Oxford is specifically. Is it pretty much, is it a volunteer basis, or is it a mandate for businesses?
It's a mask mandate for businesses, and Dr. Landrum accurately stated it. You either have to wear a mask or provide
Or show proof of vaccination to get
Yes, sir.
in? Dr. Landry, do you know what the vaccination rate for Lafayette County is?
I don't.
I know that apparently the hospital up there declared a state of emergency, and that's what prompted the board to take up a special call meeting to address that.
Correct.
With the mass state being ensuing from that.
And we're not there yet, but we do have federal aid in our hospital right now from the standpoint of nurses and respiratory therapists that are helping our
You said
staffing issues.
intensive care unit is full.
Mhm.
Doesn't the UMC, the University of Mississippi Medical Center, don't they have a temporary ICU set up in a parking garage because of the influx of coronavirus?
They do.
patients?
They have 2 field hospitals, one of which has ICU capacity.
And from what I read, there's an Associated Press article Sunday that came out Sunday, said that most people there that have the coronavirus are unvaccinated. 98%, I think, of people.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Landry. Nick, next.
Good evening, Board. I'm David Vise. I'm a board-certified public health practitioner and scientist, father of 4, here speaking with both hats on. Just wanted to give you a little overview of some of the science on masking. We know that a recent peer-reviewed publication showed that in a study of organizations and governments having just having the mask mandate in place, mask requirement in place, showed that transmission was reduced anywhere from 30 to 70%. So it was not looking at how people are wearing a mask or what type of mask they were wearing. Simply, if they had a mask mandate in place, we saw a reduction 30 to 70% compared to organizations and governments that did not have those masks mandates in place. In one particular comparison between schools that required masks versus those that had mask optional policies, we saw twice the COVID transmission in the schools where masks were required. And y'all, as you know, we're in the middle of a surge. Dr. Landrum hit on the numbers, and I won't repeat those. We're in the middle of a surge, maybe nearing the peak, fortunately, so wouldn't have to look at a sort of mask requirement for a long period of time, but we are at a point where it would be extremely beneficial for reducing the transmission of COVID in our community. I believe Dr. Landrum stated that we had the 17th highest cases by county of any county in the state, and as she said, a 44% vaccination rate. Dr. Landrum and I collaborated on a survey that we pushed out via social media. It was put on Starkville Strong's page and shared many times. Saw 292 residents of Starkville respond to that survey over the last 2 weeks. And what we saw was that 68% of Starkville residents indicated that they were concerned or very concerned about COVID, and 66% indicated that they were supportive of some sort of masking requirement, ranging from a complete requirement to requirement in selected businesses. And so I would just urge you that as you relied on data to lift the mask mandate, please look at the data again as we'll have tonight before us consideration of a mask requirement again. Don't just look at the anecdotes. This is a policy decision, and so just a word about that. This is policy, public policy and public health are far more aligned than public policy and medicine in terms of how we approach problems. Public health experts are encouraging or asking policymakers like you all to consider mask mandates as an intervention, as a prevention measure, risk reduction measure for COVID in communities. So please give that your utmost consideration tonight. And we've got a group of folks outside marching for or protesting for medical freedom. And I would argue that this is a medical freedom issue, that masking is a medical freedom issue, that it gives my children who are not able to be vaccinated the freedom to go to the grocery store with me and not have my wife and I to not have to decide which one's going, which one's keeping the kid, that sort of thing. People who are immunocompromised to be able to go to the grocery store. This is about.
That's 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
My name is Chris Taylor, Ward 7. I'm not here to talk about brown water, nor mask mandate. I'm talking about something good for the community. I just want to reiterate what the mayor said, the rental assistance. It will be flyers next Tuesday from 3 to 7, straight down here on Main Street.
It's not 4 to 7?
Oh, 4. You're right, 3 hours, 3 hours. I stand corrected. From 4 to 7, 3 hours, right downtown on 104 West Main Street. Also at the same time, people, from 1 to 6, Tippah County NAACP will have vaccination set up at Sand Hill. You can drive through, you can walk. If you need a ride, there's also flyers that if you need a ride, you could call. Someone would pick you up from our Tippah County NAACP. From 1 to 6, if you have not been vaccinated. So come on, that's good stuff, folks. Rental assistance and vaccination. If you don't want it, you just don't want it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
I feel like this is as good a time as any to bring this up. Mayor Spruill, members of the board, my name is George Rambo. I am a resident in the Northgate neighborhood, the north side of town in Ward 5 under Hant Beatty. And I've come to show you this. You've probably heard of this. Oops. This is the water in our neighborhood almost once a month for at least the past 4 years. There's a woman that I talked to down the street who accidentally gave some of this. She didn't realize that she gave some of it to her daughter, her toddler, to drink, not realizing that the water was in this condition. I brought some of my neighbors with they've come with their own board. If you could stand, please, if you're in the Northgate neighborhood. There are a few other folks that wanted to come, but they weren't able to make it. They're standing outside. They couldn't get in. Brenda here has brought a shirt. We've had multiple cases of clothes ruined by that, so you can see the stain on that shirt. But multiple cases of clothes ruined, and various other things that y'all can sit down. And so, obviously this is a health concern. We don't know what's in this water. And you never know when it's going to happen. But apparently, I've talked to Mr. Beatty, and that there's possibly a safety concern with the fire department because apparently the water line, the main water line in our neighborhood dead ends. And I guess that causes a problem with the water pressure, which means that if there were a fire and the fire department were to attempt to put it out, we don't know if there would be enough pressure. I don't know. I just want to bring this to your attention because I know that on the agenda is the ARPA funds that we've received from the federal government, and that some of that is it can go toward infrastructure. So my request on behalf of my neighbors is that you consider the water infrastructure. And I hear that maybe there are other neighborhoods also that have the problem, but for sure, Northgate has the problem. And I just want to end by saying, I've lived in other countries. I've lived in Mexico for a summer. That's not very long. I lived in Argentina for 4 years. Some would perhaps consider Argentina a third world country. In neither places did I ever see water like this.
How long has this been going on?
At least 4 years. I'm sorry, yeah, so they would say 4. I've only been here for 2 years, but it's been as long as we've lived in the neighborhood, we've dealt with it once a month. And I would say, so we call and they're like, well, just flush your water. So we flush our water for 15, 20 minutes running our bathtub, to get as much water out as quickly as we can. Well, how many gallons of water is that? I mean, so what does this do to our water bills? And maybe we can get a 5% discount on our water bill or something like that. That'd be great. But preferably, we'd rather have clean water. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rambo.
Reverend Rambo, thank you for coming. We have,
Alderman Beatty?
so I'm sorry, I was just going to say that this is on the agenda as item G, and the item just before is consideration of mask mandates. So I assume when we get to these points in the meeting, that we can take these up and discuss them if the board so chooses. But
Sure.
I had them put on the agenda for,
Yes,
for
sir.
that.
Absolutely.
And if you would, I would invite folks to stick around for that. So,
Thank you. All right, anyone else wishing to make citizens' comments? Anyone else? Anyone else?
Good evening, Board and Mayor. My name is Chance Cummins. I'm a lieutenant paramedic with the City of Starkville Fire Department. I've got 12 years of service dedicated to the city. You all have received a letter from me in your email. I hope you've all read it. I apologize for the harsh and stern words, but I stand behind every word in it. As stated, I'm a lieutenant paramedic with Starkville Fire Department. I've had nearly 12 years of dedicated service to the City of Starkville. I'm not an anti-vaccination, but I am pro-choice. An individual should be in charge of their own health care choices. My body, my choice is a common theme heard when dealing with mandated health care choices. The concessions put forth by the vaccination proposal do nothing but attempt to bully the unvaccinated into getting a vaccine they do not feel is right for them. Starkville has long claimed to be a city of inclusiveness. This is evidenced by the pride parades, the LGBTQ events, and unity marches for racial injustice. The administration of this city has always boasted how all walks of life are welcome in Starkville, until now. The very ones who have tirelessly worked during all phases of this pandemic are being rewarded for their unfailing dedication by potentially having a get it or else mandate by the city administration. The African American demographic is the least vaccinated population in Mississippi. With this proposal, those unvaccinated African American city workers will have to choose between getting a shot they do not want or taking food out of their family's mouths so they can pay for unnecessary COVID tests, insurance surcharges, or financial hardships due to lost wages because of mandatory COVID testing. The city has made a complete 180-degree turn from its stance at the Unity March in June 2020. I guess the pride for the LGBTQ community and the Black lives only matter if they're vaccinated.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Anyone else?
My name is Erica Basil, and I'm not a speaker at all. I'm not a city employee, but I am a citizen of Starkville, and I do not think that you should impose these vaccines on the city employees. These vaccines haven't had adequate time to thoroughly be researched to determine the long-term effects it will have on human beings. In fact, in the American Medical Association Encyclopedia, a coronavirus is the common cold. We don't have accurate numbers on deaths on COVID patients, and I think that the vaccines are not as effective as the public health officials told us that they would be. If they were, we wouldn't be needing booster shots. If they were, you would not have people that have been vaccinated that are getting COVID. Yes, they do help if you get COVID, if you've been vaccinated, but the choice should be yours if you want to be vaccinated or not. Not a board should be able to tell people what they put into their bodies. And a lot of people might not know it, but the vaccines contain aborted baby fetuses. that were used in the manufacturing, development, and the distribution of these vaccines. Moderna and Pfizer used aborted baby fetuses in the research and the development of their vaccines, but Johnson & Johnson used the fetuses in the manufacturing, and that would go against people's religious rights. I, for one, don't want to have that injected into my body for religious reasons. If you impose this mandate, you're taking away the people's rights, and you're suppressing their will to do what they want on their bodies. And I think you need to leave it alone and let people examine what is good for their own lives and make those decisions based on their own. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Basil.
Hello, my name is Jeanette Jarman, and I have many.
I'm sorry, Jeanette.
Jeanette Jarman.
Jarman, thank you, ma'am.
Jarmon.
Yes, ma'am.
I have many children and grandchildren in this town, and so I'm very concerned. I'm against the mandate. I'm not anti-vax. I've had vaccinations, and my children, grandchildren, but this vaccine is still experimental. Even though Pfizer's FDA approved, it's still experimental until May 2nd, 2023. I've got things from VAERS, which is the adverse reactions to, VAERSopen.com. It's where CDC things get reported to CDC. There's still a lot of deaths from the people who had vaccines. Still have deaths, stroke. This is all documented in here, and I'm not going to sit here and read every word, but there's still a lot of problems even when people are vaccinated. They're still supposed to wear masks, so they can also spread it, and they'd be asymptomatic, where maybe somebody that's not vaccinated could get it from them shedding the vaccine. But my main thing too is constitutionally, just being a mandate, it's kind of like a dictatorship. There are reasons people don't want it, and I've done a lot of research on it. And since it's still experimental, it says, can the Pfizer vaccine be referred to as experimental? Yes, as long as the clinical trials are ongoing, and that's 2023. And they do all their treatment options for COVID infection. That's that monoclonal, which is on the CDC infusion. Also, I really want to speak out. There's not enough education on what is so good about early treatment, like hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin for humans, not animals. It's been around since 70s. The hydroxychloroquine's been around for 65 years. It works together. And why don't they do a Z-Pack? Because they'll say, well, it's not an infection, but it goes up into your nasal. 1 minute?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anyway, I'm trying to say that everybody needs to research early treatment that is working well with frontline doctors. Don't wait 10 days to go to the doctor when you can't breathe. If you get it, get over it with early treatment, like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, all those other things. I just said monoclonal infusion, which is on the CDC. And the NIH has the National Institute for Health has a very good article about worldwide studies for ivermectin. So that it is proven that it helps. And so I don't think the mandate I don't think it's ready. I think maybe when we know more about a vaccine, maybe the people might choose it. But there's reasons why we don't want it and why I don't want it forced on other people. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Probably
you,
about
ma'am.
right.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Jarman.
Thank you. I think this didn't belong to me. Hey, can I leave and then let somebody else come?
Yes, ma'am, you may. Yes, ma'am, you may. Anyone else? All right. Mark, would you see if okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not one to beat around the bush. I'm Justin Edwards.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Starkville Fire Department, 19 years. I'm not one to beat around the bush. I can't give great speeches like everybody else, but I also believe that what y'all are doing could possibly be wrong for us. We've taken and been at the forefront. I've been at the fire department. We've worked hard to keep ourselves, and I really think that we should have the freedom to choose whether or not we want the vaccine or not. I also believe that if I'm doing the compromise that y'all call, it's not so much a compromise, it's more of a making me foot the bill for a test every week. If I do get COVID, I can't use my sick leave that I've earned way before this for the past 19 years. I wish y'all would just give us the freedom to choose how we want to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Evening, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. My name's Joe Diaz, and I'm a Starkville citizen and firefighter for the city. If it passes, I will not comply with your policy of discrimination against those who have not taken the COVID shot. You will have to terminate me. I have not come here to convince you of the correctness of my stance. I believe everyone's minds have been made up, and from now on, my voice and the voice of like-minded employees will be heard best through our actions. Those who stand up to the potential COVID policy will be doing what they feel is right according to their God and their conscience, and therefore will stand without fear. What I'm asking this council and all who are listening to my words is that we who are opposed to each other stand together in the spirit of forgiveness. All who feel wronged, betrayed, attacked, violated, oppressed, or mistreated, I am begging that you take a moment to look into your heart, commune with your God, even if that God is science, and ask if forgiveness is right. I'm not talking about forgiveness, which leaves you vulnerable to being wronged once again. We are armed with our experience and our minds, and we can protect ourselves from the slings and arrows of worldly existence. We can learn, move on, and not be taken advantage of. I'm talking about the kind of forgiveness which allows you to empathize with the struggles of every man and woman as they do what they can to make their way through a difficult and often confusing world. This city is reflective of the nation at large and that we are torn apart. Husbands are against wives, families are divided, and the community is darkened with a heavy cloud of us versus them mentality. So let us take a moment to reflect and forgive our would-be opponents as well as our family and friends who disagree with us. And let's go even further and forgive our mothers, forgive our fathers, forgive our children, forgive our siblings, and even forgive our in-laws for past grievances. Please join me in lifting these burdens from our hearts. There are many who feel that they do not have a voice and that they are disempowered. To them, I would say we need to remember where true power comes from. I know many agree with me that there are people in the world who would divide us in order to control us. What better weapon do we have against those people? And because we're in a debate about public health, I should mention that the health benefits of forgiveness are well documented. According to the experts at Johns Hopkins Hospital, forgiving people lowers the risk of heart attack, improves cholesterol levels in sleep, and reduces pain, blood pressure, levels of anxiety, depression, and stress. From Hippocrates to doctors on the cutting edge of medicine, we have been told time and again that healing and health begin in the mind and heart. So please do not harden your mind and heart against your neighbors who want what is best for their families and their community. Those who hear this as an apology for my stance have heard incorrectly. And for those who are hoping I might give voice to their views against the policy in question, I will repeat that our voices will be heard through our actions. While I have this precious time in front of the City Council and the ears of the community at large, my hope is that I can convince you that forgiveness towards one another is not a weakness, but one of our greatest strengths.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz.
I'm Marnita Henderson. Pardon me. I live in Ward 1. I'm not anti-vaccine. I am pro-choice. The loss of any life is very heartbreaking. But deaths in Octavia County from COVID vaccine is 0.017%. There are many, many more people lost in car accidents and COVID and cancer than from COVID. I understand from the agenda that an employee who does not take the vaccine will have to pay a $75 surcharge. How is this to be accessed? Is it up every month? Do they pay it one time? Or is it when they have to be treated for COVID? If it's up front, if they never get COVID, do they get their $75 back? If someone who's been vaccinated comes along and has COVID, are they going to have to pay a $75 surcharge? I understand that unvaccinated people will have to pay out of their pocket to have the test run every week. So this is punishment for them for not doing what you as a board wants. If someone has been vaccinated and becomes ill or is exposed, I understand they have to get extra leave to use or cannot use their leave. Since a bribe is defined as persuading someone to act as you want them to act using money, gift, or other incentives, is this not a bribe? Are you going to charge extra for the insurance for someone who contracts other contagious diseases like flu when it comes along this fall? Because there will be flu cases. They can pass it along to someone else. You can die from flu just like you can die from COVID. I would like you to really consider what you're asking these people to do, to make choices that are not necessary. Thank you, and please consider these.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson. Anyone else? Anyone else? Citizens' comments? Anyone else? Mark, would you? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Since I'm not exactly sure what is happening, but
Citizens' comments give you 3 minutes to tell us whatever it is you'd like to tell us.
yes, ma'am.
And your name, if you would.
My name is Elizabeth Frazell, and do you need an address?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Just, would you say your last name again?
F as in Frank, R-A-Z-A-O.
Okay, thank you.
Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm here to address the suggestion of mandating vaccines for the city employees. And I would like to mention that I'm surprised that the city attorney even allowed it because it is illegal to allow an experimental medical procedure. It goes against the Nuremberg Code of Trial of Ethics. It goes against the federal policy for the protection of human subjects, and it goes against the FDA's own regulations. Now, we've all heard that the vaccine is 90 to 95% effective, but do you know what exactly that means? In the clinical trials, Moderna found that their vaccine prevented 30 cases of severe COVID-19 out of 15,210 immunized participants. For Pfizer, their vaccine prevented 8 cases of severe COVID-19 out of 21,720 immunized participants. And Johnson & Johnson, their vaccine prevented 6 cases of severe COVID-19 out of 19,630 immunized participants. Doesn't sound very effective to me to have to vaccinate 15,000 people to prevent 30 cases of COVID. So I don't understand the city's rationale for mandating something that is illegal to begin with. In particular, since CDC recently acknowledged that fully vaccinated individuals not only can get infected, but they can transmit the infection, and they actually have higher viral load than the unvaccinated, which means they're much more likely to transmit the disease than the unvaccinated. If those who are fully vaccinated can get infected, transmit the virus, and actually have a higher possibility of transmitting the disease, what is the advantage of mandating a vaccine that shouldn't be mandated anyway? Even worse.
1 minute.
Left?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Even worse, the severe vaccination campaign is causing the virus to mutate into the vaccine-resistant versions. I believe the city would do a much better thing if it just provided education on early treatment and strengthening the immune system. There are several good sources of information. Doctors have proven that they have very safe and effective early treatment. The important thing is to start early. And there are several doctors who have spoken out about it. They have treated thousands of patients, and they have kept their patients out of the hospital and alive. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That would be the bell. Thank you so much. All right, anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Laura Watley, and I'm a Ward 3 citizen of Starkville. My husband and I are parents to 3 children, one of which has special needs. Because of her special needs, we are unvaccinated, and we have 0 plans of ever getting it. And thankfully, that is our medical freedom. So I'm coming to you tonight as one of the many concerned citizens about this proposal. While I'm not a city employee, I do utilize the city services every day. And with the mayor's current proposal, I believe that the individuals who are going to be required to be vaccinated are losing their medical freedoms. And when choosing not to vaccinate, they are being discriminated upon and segregated into a class of the unvaxxed. Medical freedom and the right to choose what is best for yourself is something everyone is entitled to, and the city employees are no exception. If my house catches on fire, I am not worried if the fire department is vaccinated. I'm worried about my family and the first responders that have risked their lives to come and save my family and our home. When I see a sanitation worker picking up garbage, I am not worried about their vaccination status. I'm more concerned about their safety on the back of that garbage truck. When I see a meter man coming to take our monthly reading, I am not worried about his vaccination status. I'm worried if he's had water because it's hot out there right now. When I go to renew my car tag, I'm not worried if the lady behind the glass is vaccinated. A, because she's behind the glass, but I'm more worried about having a pleasant encounter because I'm about to hand over the last of my paycheck for that really expensive car tag. It is time we start standing up for one another and respecting each other's choices, regardless if they are the same choice that you or I would make. If we do not fight for one another and start respecting each other, we are going to lose vital, seasoned employees that are not easily replaceable, and many of whom have been on the front line since day one of this pandemic. They have been on the front line putting others before themselves and have not needed a vaccine until now. And what about the individuals who have already had COVID? Do they not get the choice to remain unvaccinated and use their natural immunity to protect themselves and not suffer the ridiculous concessions that are being proposed? The vaccinated can still catch and spread COVID, yet they can go about their day-to-day lives with no repercussions. These concessions are merely a way to bully individuals into doing something that they may not feel comfortable with doing. My point is our city employees are human beings just like you and I, and they deserve the same rights. They deserve the right to choose what is best for them, and they deserve medical freedom. They deserve to not be discriminated upon for whatever decision they make. So before you cast your vote tonight, I urge you to think about your city's employees, not just as employees, but as parents like me and my husband, as your neighbors and as your friends, and as people who have the right to choose and decide for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watley. Anyone else? Mark, is there anyone else out there? Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for taking public comment on this very important issue. My name is Vicki Rose, and I am the chairman of the Libertarian Party for Mississippi. And I live in West Point, and I have many friends who reside in this city also. I'm here today to put you on notice that you took an oath to uphold not only the United States Constitution, but the Constitution of Mississippi. And within the United States Constitution, Amendment 9, it was influenced by Sir William Blackstone, who understood that everybody had the right to personal property, personal liberty, and personal security. And under personal security, he understood personal security to include the right to preserve one's own life. If you were requiring an individual to have a medical procedure done, you are not, if they believe that it does not preserve their life, if they are going to do that, you are denying them their constitutional right. Also, I'm going to put you on notice for the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution, which you, again, are to uphold. According to HIPAA law, you cannot ask any, you cannot require any, not HIPAA law. You cannot receive anybody's medical information without their permission. If you force them to tell you about their medical information, you have denied them their right so that they do not incriminate themselves under the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution. If you require them, you will have to get a warrant They do not have to release to you whether or not they have been vaccinated. And if you force them to do that, you will have to get a warrant. Otherwise, you cannot go to their doctors and request that they give you the information whether or not they are vaccinated. So, on behalf of the Libertarian Party of Mississippi, I would like to ask you to reconsider this motion to require employees, the city of Starkville, to be inoculated, or whatever this thing is. There's debate on that. And uphold the constitutional rights, as you took an oath to do, for all citizens of this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rose.
I'm representing the S&Y Apartments on Garrett Road.
And what's your name, sir?
Mark Rex, sorry, X. Mark Rex.
Rex, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I apologize. Go ahead,
And
Mr. Rex.
I'm before the board, a petition which I have signatures, which we're trying to get, you guys to help us get stuff fixed over there.
Okay.
Because we have rodent problems, rats, possums,
Okay, so-
raccoons.
And it's for Garrett Road?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
104 East Garrett Road.
If you would give that to the chief, then we will have code enforcement look at that. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I was done talking to code enforcement and stuff. She told me to come in front of you guys and get a petition to you guys.
Okay. Well, we will go through that tomorrow. Thank
All right.
you so
Thank you,
much.
ma'am. Y'all have a-
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, did you want? All right, if you just lay them on the table and the chief can pass them out, Mr. Priest.
I'm Walter O'Queeson. I guess all of you guys know me. I've been here before. I'm not here to really speak on the vaccine mandates or anything like that. I think that vaccinations are a great thing, greatest thing since sliced bread. But unfortunately, I don't think that they hold the promise to end this pandemic and prevent it from continuing into an epidemic. But I think that it is important that we consider mask mandates, perhaps only for as little as a month. And I've sent you all, I guess about a week ago, the best ever rationale for mask mandates. And I think the guy makes some legitimate points as to why not having a mask mandate deprives business owners of their property rights if it's not feasible since it's unlikely to be feasible that enforcement of their right to serve the people that they only wish to serve is upheld by the law enforcement. Without a mask mandate, it's tantamount to depriving business owners of their private property rights. And I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
the graph I've been promising some of y'all that's Israel, is data from Israel. They had above 50% vaccination rates in the middle of March of this year, and they have that new case curve. It's up almost to 1,200, and that's where we are. Except maybe we may perhaps be rounding down. Maybe it's really too early to say it. to tell. All of the curves, once you start falling off, and they all have a little uptick. Every country, every state, everyone I've looked at. So who knows?
Thank you, Mr. O'Queese.
Thank you.
Good evening. I understand you've heard a lot about vaccination tonight, and I'm here to talk about a very different kind of freedom.
Could we have your name, please?
Yeah, so fortunately not that. My name is Mia Robertson. I'm a long-term resident of Starkville. I graduated from Starkville High, and I now attend Mississippi State. I'm here to express strong opposition to your plan to partner with Lowndes County in creating juvenile detention seats for Starkville's juveniles. This plan would produce long-term devastating impacts, not just for our community, but also for the juveniles who will be jailed. First, Mayor Spruill, I understand that you interpret your proposal only as support for our courts, not as expanding juvenile detention broadly. However, the implications of your plan mean nothing but expansion. As it stands, and as you expressed in your interview with the Dispatch, Starkville judges who want juveniles to report to detention have serious roadblocks. They can't always guarantee a bed will be available at any given time. As a result, judges are incentivized to utilize the limited available bed space only for those they deem utterly necessary to be in detention. For all other juveniles, judges are incentivized to pursue less punitive but still effective measures. Under your proposal, all of those roadblocks go away, and with them, the incentive to pursue less punitive measures. Your plan guarantees that a child can be sent to detention at any given time with little to no second thought. So, Mayor Spruill, you remarked that your proposal would be a responsible first step in reducing juvenile crime. To you, I then ask, do juvenile detention centers actually produce those outcomes? Empirically, do they result in a net positive outcome for our community? The answer to that question is an unequivocal, undebatable, uncontroversial no. In fact, one study by researchers at the University of Washington found that just one stay in juvenile detention increases the likelihood of felony recidivism by 33%, and that for each added day a young person spends in juvenile detention, that rate jumps by an additional 1%. The jury is in. The evidence is clear. This plan does not accomplish your stated goals. It only makes them more difficult to reach. Young people don't belong in jail. They deserve to be supported and provided for by our community. That's why I'm here to express strong opposition, along with the more than 150 people who have signed this letter to keep our kids out of jail. Please oppose this plan. Our kids don't belong in jail. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson. Anyone else?
Mayor, members of the City Council or Board of Aldermen, I don't have a prepared speech because the information...
Your name, please, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Tom Donahue. James Thomas Donahue is my full name. My first career was as a virologist with the Pennsylvania Department of Health. Well, actually, before that, I had 2 years in immunology, then a hitch in the Coast Guard, and then I came back, Pennsylvania Department of Health, working as a microbiologist in virology. I kept in touch with all of my colleagues, so actually, now quite a few years ago, I did a career change and became a teacher in one of America's leading public high schools. But I kept my finger in the pot in virology, kept in touch with all of my colleagues, and in fact, I love getting in conversations with other scientists who know what they're talking about. Let me start with the fact that this pandemic is a hoax, and I will say nothing, and I will not qualify that. When I first heard about it, I thought, okay, here comes another virus scare story, like I've been through so many of already. First there was the swine flu, and then it was the bird flu. One of the more recent was the Zika viruses, where they said that we were going to have a huge outbreak of microcephaly among newborn children. None of them really turned into anything. I did pay close attention to the AIDS epidemic, because by that point I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I know a few people who died of that as well. Because I have stayed in contact with the world of microbiology, the world of virology, I've ended up at quite a few functions and ended up either working for, working with, or an extensive conversation with no less than 6 Nobel Prize winners over recent years. And from some of them, I learned things very specific that have not made it to the news, that I have not heard anybody else say. I want to ask, how many of you know who James D. Watson is? I can't ask for a show of hands like in a classroom. He was the man who discovered DNA in 1953. He worked out the structure of DNA. He was a guest speaker at something I was attending at Stanford. And he was the person who told me then he had been hired as a consultant to, as a consultant to the president. And, President Clinton. And Clinton fired him. We asked why, because he wasn't telling Clinton the things he wanted to hear. He was telling them the scientific truth. But what I also learned from Watson at that time was that Clinton had taken it upon himself to fire the entire upper echelon of CDC.
Mr. Donahue, that's your 3 minutes, sir.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes, sir.
That sure went fast.
It did go fast. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Yep, you're welcome.
Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm here tonight because I'm...
Give your name, please, ma'am.
Ariel Garrick.
Garrett? Yes, ma'am.
And I found something that concerns me greatly. It is a letter to Pfizer Incorporated to Ms. Elisa Harkins, and it's from Rear Admiral Denise M. Hinton, Chief Scientist at the FDA. And on page 5, it says, there is no adequate, approved, and available alternative to the emergency use of Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine to prevent COVID-19. I beg to differ. There are many doctors speaking out that have told us that HCQ works. We've known this for quite a long time. It's inexpensive. It does work. It's not harmful. It's about 99.9% effective. And the man who just spoke, Tom Donahue, is my husband. And when we first heard about COVID, we were sitting there, and he said it was called the coronavirus. And he said, oh, HCQ will cure that. And a couple months later, Dr. Zeb Zelenko, he's on the internet, find him. He speaks out. He's the one that cured 700 of his patients with it. There's also ivermectin, which has been proven to work. But the main thing that concerns me is what's in this letter, and it says on page 11, all descriptive matter, printed matter, advertising, and promotional material relating to the use of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine clearly and conspicuously shall state that this product has not been approved or licensed by FDA, but has been authorized for emergency use by FDA under an EUA, Emergency Use Authorization. This letter was dated August 23rd. Okay, this is the same day that we were told it was authorized. It's not. We have been, the media's misled us. And what was approved was a different vaccine called Cormentin. And then the next paragraph says, export is permitted only, export of this vaccine is permitted only if the regulatory authorities of the country in which the vaccine will be used are fully informed that this vaccine is subject to an EUA, Emergency Use Authorization, and is not approved or licensed by FDA. This means that this vaccine has not been approved by the FDA. It is still under Emergency Use Authorization, and I might add falsely, from what I can tell. And that means nobody is ever allowed to experiment on humans. Children have been vaccinated. We've been experimented on. This is what's happening. And mandating it is crimes against humanity. And I think you all should know that. Further, there's also evidence that Nuremberg 2 trials are right now going on in Europe. And people have already been convicted. And I might also remind you that the only penalty for that is execution. And go look it up on the internet, because it's all over the internet. Look up Reinhard Fuhlmicht. He's a lawyer who's licensed in Germany and California.
Ms. Garrett, thank you very much. That's 3 minutes. Thank you.
Mayor, this is a little unorthodox, but I'm going to probably make a motion that we, if it's okay with the board, majority of the board, that we wrap up just some comments at, say, 7:15, just do the sheer volume, I think, of what we have outside and inside.
Oh, well, Alderman Carver, I thought you were one of the ones that wanted to let it go for a while, so I just, if the board wishes to do that, we can certainly.
Typically I say.
Let's see if it goes to 7:15. How about that?
I typically say
We've only got two more.
Okay,
So.
we just got a lot that's not on the consent tonight, more than normal.
Yes, okay, that'll be fine. Thank you. All right, citizens' comments. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How are you? My name is Bobby, and I want to read a statement from my local pastor, Pastor Johnny Buckner.
Bobby, I'm sorry, last name?
Bobby Craig.
Craig, thank you, sir.
Some things we know, many things we don't know. But tragically, we don't even know that we don't know. Though we can feel sometimes that something just has to be done, none of us would want to just do something, even if it is wrong. I personally believe that mandating vaccines for city employees is at the very least questionable, but may actually go so far as being potentially dangerous for individuals. We can argue both sides here tonight, but the truth is nobody knows. Both sides can quote knowledgeable and renowned epidemiologists, virologists, and other medical specialists, and practitioners even quote studies to support their position. And everybody has their own anecdotal experiences. We tell our stories, quote our experiences, and hope that our advice will result in challenging situation being settled. Settled science is actually an oxymoron. True science begs for more information because conclusions are formalized. Real scientists welcome questions and challenges. Regarding questionable actions that might affect just one individual or even more so a broader population, we must give each potential participant a freedom of choice, taking great care to avoid abridgment of individual rights. Any proposed solution must be proven beyond reasonable doubt that the actions to be taken will definitively help and not potentially further endanger participants. All risks must be considered through a process that welcomes questions and differing views. I propose that it is good to question both sides, and it is even okay for people to end up disagreeing. Being true to the scientific method, we must not silence those that question or disagree. And we must be careful to not mandate something that potentially poses high risk. And now I would like to say something short. My heart goes out to city employees who may be feeling pressured, and I would just say, please do not resign. Please do not resign, because in resigning, you will give this authority a place in our city. And there is no authority for this mandate.
Thank you, Mr. Craig.
My name's Chad Scott. When I talk about vaccines, folks want to know my background. I've been studying the vaccine schedule since 2009. I took about 20 to 30 hours of science at EMCC in Mississippi State. My mom's a lab tech with over 30 years in a lab. I study many neurologists, biologists, so on and so on. I want to caution you guys, all of you have had presidents that you've disliked. You've had federal policy that you've disliked. You know about the corruption and the tyranny of the federal government. But somehow it seems when it comes to vaccines and medicine, you throw all that out. I don't know how you can do that. Also, I want you to look at the VAERS data, which others may have reminded you about. Folks are being murdered by this vaccine. I want you to also look at the vaccine injured, the vaccine hospitalized, and the stories. And if somebody passes out 3 hours after a vaccine, that is related. That is related. Also, I hope and I pray that it's not a federal grant that's making you push this. Your job is more than just getting federal grants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Anyone else? Just any outside, Mark? Okay, all right. We will close it as citizen comments. And the next item on the agenda is public appearances. We have those who've been waiting so patiently and so long. Dr. Hyatt, thank you so much for being here. This is part of the legislative requirement that comes with receipt of the 2% funds is for the Student Association, and Dr. Hyatt in this case is representing them, to give us their budget for the 2% for the upcoming fiscal year. So thank you so much for being here.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Board. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. On behalf of the Mississippi State University Student Association, I bring you greetings. Garrett Smith is our student body president. Unfortunately, he had to leave this meeting to attend the Student Association meeting tonight. We have in your packet our proposal for this upcoming academic year. You'll note that all of our usual activities are included, as we do expect a return of the major events that we've planned in the past. We also are expecting to return to the usage of our Cowbell Cabs program, which provides free transportation to students to and from campus to attend events off campus. We are happy to respond to any questions or concerns that you might have, but there is nothing unusual in this year's proposal. I might just take a moment of personal privilege and offer a word of thanks to both chiefs who are here tonight, Chief Ballard and Chief Yarborough, for their continued support of all of the student life activities that we share. And we are so grateful and appreciative to the city for propping up all of the engagement that our students have within Starkville. I know we can all agree we're glad to see students back. And it's been a bumpy start to the semester for all of us as we get used to that again. But all in all, I think we are very grateful to have our students back on campus this fall. That's all I have, Mayor. If there are questions from the board, I would certainly entertain them.
We have, well, it may be cockeyed, it may be a little sideways, but there it is. We pulled up the budget. So let me see if there are any questions. And we also are very pleased that our sales tax from which we all benefit has continued to climb as we've gotten back to some semblance of normalcy here with our students being back in town and us being able to get out again. Alderman Carver, any questions of Dr. Hyatt?
No, ma'am.
Alderman Sistrunk?
No, but I would like to say that I very much appreciate Cowbell Cabs being on the list again, and I hope that people will take advantage and use that service.
Thank you. Alderman Rupp?
No, ma'am.
Alderman Brooks?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Alderman Beatty?
Mayor, since this percentages on this that go to MSU for activities and things are dictated by our local and private bill, why don't we just go ahead and I'll make a motion that we approve.
You certainly may. May I go on down the line here real quick, and then we'll come back to you for that motion.
No, thank you, Mayor. No, thank you.
Alderman Vaughn?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Alderman Beatty, you have a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
You want to approve the MSU Student Association proposed budget for the fiscal year 2021 to 2022?
And the OCEDA also.
I'm sorry?
And the OCEDA also, because they're all mandated by our local and private bill.
They are.
Commissioner Taggart wants to come up.
Commissioner Taggart has waited a while, so let's give him a second here.
Absolutely.
Just a second. And Dr. Hyatt, we have a motion, and do I have a second for that?
So moved.
I have a second from Alderman Brooks. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you so much, and thank you again
Thank
for
you.
being here. We appreciate it. And I understand you guys are going to have an announcement tomorrow?
We are.
You don't want to make a preview announcement of any kind?
I cannot offer a preview announcement, but we're very excited about the return of Bulldog Bash on November 5th.
Okay, great.
Can you hum a tune?
I really can't because the students have made a wonderful selection that I've never heard of. So.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
All right,
that'd be
well,
great.
that's intriguing, so we will look forward to that. Thank you again, Dr.
Thank
Hyde.
y'all.
Appreciate
We
your presence.
appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. And Commissioner Taggart. And Commissioner Taggart is presenting not only the OCEDA budget, but also the VCC or CVB budget, depending on how you want to call that.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all for having me and for the partnership being here to represent these two budgets. You will see in the budgets that we presented, and do you have a preference on which one we cover first?
no, and you can
Okay.
just do a high look.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Well, the most important number that's on here is that we believe, based on the projections, that we'll return to pre-pandemic numbers for the VCC this year. And that comes to, on your hotel tax, that's about $310,000 gone to promote the city through the VCC. There's not any sort of extreme changes related to your VCC budget. All the operating expenses are almost identical to what they have been the last couple of years. We are putting more of an emphasis on convention and group recruitment to the community, so there's a slight increase there. We've recategorized just tweaked a few things because we are now advertising in different ways than we ever have in the past, much more digital approach than maybe we have done in the past. Very positive, much better return for your dollars. I'm happy to answer any questions, but the most important thing, again, is that we anticipate a return to the pre-pandemic numbers to support your programs.
And much the same for OCEDA, is that not?
Very much the same. In fact, our projections are exactly that for your pre-pandemic numbers. Your general income, the only number that I might note under your general operations income, you may see the other income category, and that represents $14,175, and that is your ag lease income for your North Star Industrial Park. So that's newly noted.
Okay.
So, but no other major changes whatsoever.
All right, thank you. Any questions of Commissioner Taggart? Mr. Carver?
Well, just you said an increase in the group and convention interest, or that's just recruitment of large activities and large.
It is, that's right. It's recruitment. It's an active recruiting program to get conventions here during those months where we may not have football season, for example, particularly January, February. Plus, the good thing about those conferences and those big groups that we're targeting, they come in during the week, so they supplement your weekend hotel income, and that's really the effort. We've never had an organized, we've not had as much of an organized effort until now. So just a slight increase on that and the ability to do that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Sistrunk?
Thank you. No.
Alderman Rupp?
No, ma'am.
Alderman Brooks?
On the OCEDA budget, the sale of the multi-tenant center?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm new here, you got to kind of.
That is a building that OCEDA owned out at the Thad Cochran Research Park, which was sold, I believe, about 2.5 years ago. Okay. And those payments are made quarterly from the university to OCEDA, and that represents a total of $198,000 per year.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Alderman Beatty?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Vice Mayor Perkins?
No, ma'am, Mayor, thank you.
Alderman Vaughn?
No, ma'am, Mayor, thank you.
All right, thank you. And Alderman Beatty, should we take that motion from you
Yes.
again? All right, I have a motion from Alderman Beatty. Do I have a second?
Second.
I heard Alderman Vaughn, I believe, first. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you again, Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate all your work and appreciate you being here this
Yes,
evening.
ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next item we have is a public hearing. It's a special exception from development standards related to the facade colors for proposed Triangle Crossing Shopping District. And Mr. Haviland.
SE 2105, this is a request by MJM Architects on behalf of Castle Properties to allow for an exception from the development standards related to facade colors for the proposed Triangle Shopping Center. The applicant is seeking a special exception from the development standards to allow for the bright orange awnings as part of the building facade. The awning color is part of the branding of the proposed tenant, Ulta Retail Stores. The applicant is also requesting the applicant has pulled that request. Excuse me. Section 3.41 of the UDC requires that any request to deviate from development standards that is non-dimensional requires a special exception. This is an image of the latest proposed elevation of the site. This is a blow-up of the section of the building with the orange awnings. This is one of the things that was denied by the architecture review. Section 3.41 of the UDC lists 8 criteria for review and approval of a special exception. The criteria are listed in staff report for your reference. The request was noticed in accordance with the UDC. 11 property owners of record within 160 feet were notified by mail. And a legal ad was published in Starkville Daily News on August 14, 2021. As of this date, the planning office has received no response from the notification. In an opinion of the planning department, the special exception request could meet the criteria for special exception review and approval. And August 31st, in a special call meeting of P&Z, they recommended denial of the request by 3-2.
Okay. Is that it, Mr. Allen?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Anything from, okay, is the applicant here? And this is strictly related to the color, is that correct?
This is strictly related to color. There's another portion of this later.
Okay, well, and I may see if it's okay with the board that we pull it forward as long as we have everyone here, but I will do this other first. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Identify
Thank you.
yourself, please, sir.
My name is Matt Phillips. Good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Board of Aldermen. Again, I'm one of the principals with Rise Partners. Our company is a partner with Castle Properties on the redevelopment of the future redevelopment of the Guerin facility. We're very excited about the progress we've made on this project. And as we're finishing dotting I's and crossing T's here, we look forward to discussing with each of you our plans to do a groundbreaking very soon. As it relates to the Ulta awning color, we've been very fortunate at Rise Partners to do several shopping center developments across the Southeast. Most of these developments included Ulta, as they're one of the fastest growing tenants in our sector, and which is a great thing to hear with, some of the troubles that the pandemic and other things have caused in our industry. And in all of our developments, Ulta's had a similar facade than what's shown on the screen, which includes the orange canopies. It's not because I'm partial to orange, by the way. I'm not great at picking colors, so I've got to be honest, but it's because these types of things retailers like Ulta consider a part of their brand. And brand is very important to retailers. Think, and often those colors are non-earth tone. Think red with Target, think orange with Home Depot, think red with Trader Joe's or Chick-fil-A. The list goes on and on. I believe the process up to this point has had good intentions. I do think that, however, it has become somewhat subjective, and in my humble opinion, it has an effect on what businesses can locate in our project, or even worse, in the city. I'm not an expert on interpreting codes. Our consultant, Matt Root, is here to speak to some of the things that we see as it relates to the UDO, and I'd like to call him up to the podium if that's okay with you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Matthew Root. I'm the architect working for Rise Partners and Castle Properties on this project. I'm happy to be here. We're here because of the special exception request, although I still believe in our reading of this language in the UDO that accent colors should be allowed. The orange color of this canopy represents less than 2% of the overall facade, and the language in the UDO says that primary facade colors shall be neutral, earth tone, etc. Use of the word primary implies that there's opportunity for accents. It's a reasonable reading and a reasonable interpretation on behalf of our client and the tenants. Whereas if the language said all, facade color shall be neutral earth tone. That would present a different reading. And we would have had conversations with these tenants much earlier in the process about whether or not they were going to want to come under those conditions. So all that said, we are asking for approval of this orange color for less than 2% of the facade of this overall building.
And you said UDO, you mean UDC?
I'm sorry,
Just making sure
the
that we-
design ordinance, the uniform
Yes.
design ordinance.
Okay,
yes.
all right, that's fine, thank you, sir. All right, any questions of either the applicant or Mr. Haviland? Mr. Carver?
I'm just gonna say, I would definitely support this tonight, just the special exception from development standards. I really just talked to Mr. Castleberry and got his opinion on some things. He said, something stuck with me, he said, can you imagine Chick-fil-A not being red or McDonald's not having golden arches or blue arches? From continuity of things I see on Highway 12, it's probably a lot better operation and look, and a lot of things we have on 12 that name things by name. This doesn't strike me something visually that is as bad as some other things I see. I know we speak about LED lights often, but some other things that this town and this city has done. So I'll be in support of the special exception tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Carver. Ms. Sister?
My questions were answered with the comments. Thank you.
Mr. Rupp?
I've got 2 teenage daughters and a wife. If you think the mask thing was controversial, I couldn't go home. I support the exception.
Alderman Brooks? Okay. Alderman Beatty?
Mr. Root, thanks for coming tonight. I went to Atlanta this past weekend, and on the way home, I decided to get off the interstate highway, drive highway, what was it, 278 on Atlanta. Goes through Powder Springs, Georgia, Gaston, Alabama, back that way. And I did notice 2 shopping centers, and they both had the orange color on the altar front. I did notice also that both of those properties did not use split face CMU block as the exterior. Both of them had brick fronts, particularly Gaston, Alabama, brick fronts and stucco exteriors. One of the things that we have tried to do here, and I know somebody mentioned a while ago, set the standards now, what's down the road on Highway 12, is to try to set an architectural standard where we raise the bar a little bit for what's done in Starkville versus what's been done in the past. I guess my question to you would be, do you know of other locations or other locations where the orange is not used?
There are locations where the orange is not used, and you'll find maybe 24 out of 1,200 stores.
Is that because of standards?
It could be because of a standard. The majority of them are actually predate this orange color being part of the brand. Several examples were provided, 4 examples were provided by the consultant. At least 3 of those were in New Jersey, in stores that were built prior to 2010, as Ulta was still formulating an identity and a brand. One of those stores, I've noticed through some looking online, has already replaced those canopies with orange canopies as part of a lease renewal. So it is an important thing to them that they're even going back and modifying that where they can. We've been doing shopping center work for the entire life of our firm. We've been working on Ultas since probably 2007, and since 2010, when this standard, when the orange sort of became part of their brand, everyone we've done has had orange canopies.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Perkins?
No comments, Mayor, thank you.
Alderman Vaughn?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to accept the architect recommendation.
All right, I have a motion from Alderman Vaughn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Carver. Okay?
Mayor, one thing for you, the architect's recommendation is to reject the color. Our local architect who did the architectural review. Is Mr. Stewart in the building? When we can we hear from him just for a moment?
Yeah, well, I was actually going to see if the board wanted to bring forward item C, since we had these folks already here. But if you would like to hear from him, then
Well, I mean, I just go ahead and let's bring C in, and we'll.
Okay, well, I have a motion and a second, so, I'm sorry. Yes, we do. That's right, we do. I'm sorry, we do have a public hearing. Let's have that public hearing. How about that? We'll see if he'll come forward for the public hearing. So if you don't mind, step back.
Could you restate the motion?
The motion was to accept the facade color, is that correct? As requested, so it would be to accept the special exception. Okay, all right, so I have to open it as a public hearing. That sounds awful, doesn't it? I would like to open it as a public hearing. So I will open it as a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak either to or for or against this item, and this is specifically the acceptance or the request for an exception to the code to allow an orange, as you see up there, proposed awning color for Ulta for the Triangle Crossing Shopping Center. So anyone wishing to speak either for or against. Mr. Stewart, if you are here, would like to come take that opportunity. How about that?
Yes, ma'am. I'll try to keep this brief, as I'm sure you all hope. I wish I was getting paid by the hour tonight. As I was sitting outside waiting to come in, sitting on one of the benches, and was thankful that somebody was thoughtful enough to put those there. And that's really kind of what we're talking about, is how thoughtful the design of new construction in Starkville is. As many of you know, this process started a couple of years ago, in part due to some other projects that received a lot of criticism. As a group, the reviewers, we have been pretty consistent, I think, in requiring projects to not give us just their standard or prototypical buildings, and that's from other reviewers other than myself. The project originally submitted, and I'm going to talk about this, not just the orange color, but the other issue as well, so I don't have to come back and bore you some more. But there were a number of things that didn't meet the UDC. Those were mentioned. From the beginning, Aldi was submitted separately a year or so ago. The comments on that were that the rest of the facility should meet the character, style, or look of Aldi, or that Aldi in turn should be changed later on to meet the character of the shopping center. And I know it's been said that this seems subjective, but there have been studies where people put two buildings side by side on a series of slides, pick which one looks better. Across all sorts of demographics, people normally pick the same thing, looks better. So we're just asking for something that looks a little better. The drawings you have are maybe, I know Alderman Beatty mentioned this about the concrete block. The building is not brick, it's concrete block with stucco, synthetic stucco. And as you can see, kind of is, we're just wanting more to all go together, or at least that's the recommendation that I had. So I just feel like long-term gain or long-term ideal for Starkville is that we up the requirement so that eventually these new projects bring up those properties in town that we think are less attractive. So I just stand behind what I wrote before, is that I recommend that you don't approve these changes.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. All right, anyone else wishing to speak to this as a matter of the public hearing? Anyone? All right, I will close it as a public hearing. And I have a motion from Alderman Vaughn and a second from Alderman Carver. Any further discussion? Alderman Bate.
Yes, I just wanted to mention, so I'll just refresh everybody on this particular project through its evolution to where it is tonight. And since this thing started, we have granted, if sales and target goals are met, we have granted Casper Properties, the company that's putting the shopping center in, $4.3 million in tax increment finance. We granted a special exception for the dumpster location, a variance from building setbacks, a variance from parking setbacks, a variance from sidewalk requirements, a variance from driveway spacing, and a landscape waiver of tree protection requirements. I guess what I'm saying is that we have granted exception after exception after exception for this thing to get it going. And what I think our architect that has looked at this thing for review has basically stated to us is that probably also would go with a muted color, maybe not. But I guess the question needs to be asked, Mr. Root, have y'all asked off if they'd use another color?
They will tell us no. And if you deny it, we will have to tell them that it's been denied, and they will make that decision. We can't speak.
Ms. Root, if you would, we just need you to be at the microphone so that we can capture that response. Sorry. No.
We are required, the developers are required by the terms of the lease to provide them with those elements, those colors. It does give them an option to withdraw from the project. Whether they would or whether they wouldn't is not something that I could sit here and tell you at this time. I'm sorry I can't give you a definitive answer.
I appreciate your candor on that. And I just did want to mention that a tax increment financing bonds that the city will issue, that's not a loan. That $4.3 million will not be paid back to the city. It actually lowers Mr. Castleberry's capital investment, initial capital cost on this project, whatever that total amount is. If in fact he hits targets, meets the target goals and stuff, and he asks us and we issue those TIF bonds, the city will use all the property tax and most of the sales tax on this property to service the debt on $4.3 million worth of bonds that will essentially have lowered the capital cost, the initial capital cost of this project by $4.3 million. And I just wanted to refresh everybody's memory on that.
Thank you, Mr. Baker.
Ma'am, with their brand name, we went and asked Kentucky Fried Chicken to change their color. We went and asked Mississippi State Bulldog to change their colors. So let's go on with the motion.
All right, thank you. I have a motion and a second. Nothing further. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right.
I'm going to end on one comment that
Alderman Carver.
in response to what Alderman Beatty was saying. I do think he has some valid points, but just especially the TIF issue, that you and I probably agree on the rest of the variance request, just due to the fact, while that may sound like a lot, through the fact the sheer volume of what Castle Properties does in and around this town and area and multiple counties, I don't think it's exorbitant of anything this board has done in the time that I've been here, just percentage-wise for other developers, and definitely not any kind of special emphasis, but I think I would agree with you on some of the TIF things. You and I have had some conversations where we're at on our capacity of those. But for the rest, I don't see anything. Thank you.
All right, thank you. If I could, while we have these gentlemen here, does anyone have any objection to go ahead and doing 10C, which is the appeal of the denial of the building design plan? Anyone have any objection to going ahead and proceeding with that?
Come on, Mayor.
All right. Seeing none, while we're here, Daniel, would you move that up and move forward with that?
Yes, this is accompanied with that. The previous issue was just for the canopy. This is the entire design. So this is the appeal of the decision to deny the proposed building design by the independent consultant as part of our architecture review. And the way this basically works in the UDC is that if it's nothing that's dimensional or nothing that's listed specifically in the development standards and it's denied based on the other criteria of the architecture review, then it automatically goes as an appeal. And the applicants have applied for an appeal in the appropriate amount of time to qualify.
Okay, thank you very much. So this would not have gone through BOA or P&Z as it relates to this particular item?
No.
Okay, thank you so much. Gentlemen, do y'all have anything you wish to add to what you have already said about
Sure.
this?
Again, my name's Matt Phillips. First of all, Mayor, thank you for that hospitable move there. I really appreciate that. You know, these requests are really connected at the hip. This is about branding. There's a number of national retailers that I wish I could rattle off for you. Unfortunately, I have a confidentiality agreement where I can't do it, but we have signed leases with a number of national retailers where what's very important to them is their brand. That their store, that when you pull into the parking lot, that their store is recognizable. And so a big part of this is our attempt to meet them where their needs are so that we can locate them in Starkville. Each one of these tenants want to be in Starkville. And so we're doing all that we can, working very hard to make that happen. But this is our attempt to get to a point where each one of the retailers can look like their store, that they can have their brand, but also do our best to comply with the UDC requirements. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matt Root. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Root?
Thank you very much for allowing us to move up in this agenda. It's very, very helpful. Daniel, would you mind showing the other PDF? So you guys have a packet in front of you that has several sheets in it. It's the same information that's going to be up here on the screen. I wanted to just walk through a little bit of the process and kind of how we got to where we are, to sort of understand the efforts that have indeed been made on behalf of trying to comply with the UDC and merge the needs of the retailers with the desires of the community as expressed through the guidelines. And this first slide is what was submitted to Daniel and what was reviewed by the outside consultant. This is essentially the required submittal documentation, which lists the materials, shows the colors, shows the site plan, and all of the items that are used in the center. Aldi, which is on the far right, as was mentioned, was submitted over a year ago. That's actually a separate parcel, a separate ownership, a separate control, and that is Aldi's prototype, 100% Aldi's prototype. That was submitted and approved. Understand, it is closer and meets more what the expressed desire has been for Starkville. So we're attempting to follow that standard that was established in providing the colors and the palette and materials for the shopping center. On the next couple of slides,
I'll let that do that.
that first one was the 6th page.
They have it in front of them if you just like talk
sorry.
about it.
Yeah. There's the elevations show, the top elevation on page 2 and page 3 both show what this would actually look like if we were just putting each tenant's prototype in there. You see that there's and I wish everybody could see it, but there's a large differences in scale and proportion between the entrances and the remaining walls. Rooftop equipment would not be screened. A much greater range of colors. No real cohesive base material, field, and cornice, which we've added throughout the center to try to help tie all this together. There's actually quite a bit of strides taken to try to, again, preserve their brand identity on their entrances and yet tie the entire center together as cohesively as we can through the main building materials.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Root? Mr. Root?
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else?
So I think, this is I believe that we've met all of the objective requirements that are in the guidelines in the UDC as far as heights, changes in plane of depth, all of those items. We're just talking about what we're left with is some subjective opinions and criteria about whether something is to be a continuous facade or a homogeneous facade, neither of which word appears in the UDC. Harmonious does, but harmonious is different materials and different things working together in a cohesive manner, not monotonous and homogeneous.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's see if anyone has any questions. Alderman Vaughn, any questions from you? Vice Mayor Perkins?
No, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Alderman Bailey?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Alderman Brooks?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Alderman Rupp?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Alderman Sistrunk?
No, thank you.
Alderman Carver?
No, ma'am.
Okay, If there are no questions then, do we have a motion of any kind? I have a motion for approval from Alderman Carver. Do I have a second?
Second.
I heard a second, I believe, from Alderman Vaughn first. No further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, passes 6-1. Thank you so much. All right, and that lets us get next to public hearing for the variance from the wall sign size at 211 South Jackson Street for 44 Prime. Do we, I don't know if the applicant is here or not, but Mr. Haviland, go right ahead.
This is a request by Thomas Stewart of Architectonics on behalf of Michelle Fant for a variance from the wall sign requirements at 211 South Jackson. This is located right next to the railroad tracks, directly south of the Georgia Blue Restaurant, where you have a connecting courtyard. The applicant is proposing a halo-lit wall sign on the south side of the building, approximately 65 feet from the right-of-way at South Jackson Street. The proposed wall sign exceeds the maximum dimension of 3 foot tall and the font height of 18 inches. The variance request is to increase the height of the sign to 5 feet and the font size to 18. And you can see the example of the sign at the top right and then what it is in the portion of the building. The request was noticed in accordance with the UDC by property owners of record. Were noticed directly by mail in the legal ad published on July 29, 2021, and a sign posted on the property. As of this date, we have received no response to this notification. There are 6 criteria for variance review and approval in section 3.71. And because this isn't a form-based district, there are also 4 additional criteria for variance review and approval. In the opinion of the planning department, proposed variance request could meet the criteria for variance review and approval. And on August 25th, 2021, the Board of Adjustments and Appeals voted unanimously to recommend approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Haviland. And the applicant is here or not? Okay, the applicant is.
Was Mr. Stewart as well?
Oh, okay, well. All right, the applicant is not here, but we are still required to have a public hearing. Before I open it as a public hearing, any questions of Mr. Haviland? You want to take that by a sign of any kind? None? All right, I will open it as a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter, this is a variance for the wall sign for 44 Prime. Anyone wishing to speak about this matter, now is your opportunity. Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I will close it as a public hearing, and we will entertain a motion if there is one.
Move approval of the request.
I have a motion from Alderman Brooks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Sistrunk. Seeing no further discussion noted, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. It's unanimous. Thank you so much. All right, and next item is a second public hearing on the budget and tax levy for the city of Starkville. Anything you'd like to share, Alderman Sistrunk, before I open it as a public hearing?
We've gone through this a couple of times at work sessions and at the previous board meeting. The budget and tax levy have been online and available for review. The tax levy is unchanged. The budget is balanced, and it is has some details that will still be worked out, what goes into the capital improvements, that sort of thing, but the general spending outlines are outlined and balanced and ready to go.
Okay, and the budget is a living document.
It is a living document,
okay.
And we will no doubt change it, but we only have one opportunity to set a tax levy.
Yes, okay. All right, well, I will open it as a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak about the budget and the tax levy, and let's be clear, there is no increase in the tax levy, and the budget is holding at what is up there. So the numbers change on that because of various and sundry things like assessments and that sort of thing, but there is no change in the tax levy proposed. So anyone wishing to speak on that, now is the time to do so. Anyone? All right, I will close it as a public hearing, and that moves us from that. We will be taking that up under the board business. So we've been here 2 hours. Does the board wish to take a break of any kind?
Not anymore.
Anyone? Not anymore? All right, let me canvass here. Does anyone wish to take a 5-minute break? All right, let's do that. If we would come back, let's make it at 7:45. Okay? All right, thank you. We'll stand in adjournment for recess for County Juvenile Detention Facility. And we did have one person under citizens' comments who spoke about it quite passionately. And I want to be really clear that one of the issues that we have been trying to deal with for a number of months, perhaps years, I probably should say, and it was a discussion that was generated by a community-wide discussion, actually. A number of us attended it, including police chief and some aldermen, that there is, and our local judge, youth court judge, is that there is a difficulty with getting detention beds for juveniles. And this is not jail. The most they can be in there is for 90 days, and usually they're in there for a significantly less period of time. And Judge Quarles has that responsibility, and it is indeed a heavy one, but frequently she finds herself with juveniles who are committing crimes with guns. And those are the ones that she deems to be most appropriately influenced by a small time or a short time in detention. And so we have talked about doing an area regional detention, and we were in Lowndes County, Clay County, Choctaw County, Webster County, all visited about how that might be accomplished and who would need it. And so after a visit, one of the things that we determined is that Lowndes County has a juvenile detention facility that will house 22. And they were not using it because it was not fully funded. And so one of the things that, rather than trying to build a facility that would serve the entire region, that we take a facility that's already in existence and help Lowndes County as they are able to service more than 6, which is the maximum that was that they could serve, or the maximum number of beds that they could utilize based on staffing. And so that's how we came to this. And so Judge Quarles, who is the Oktibbeha County Youth Court judge, and there's a number of other judges who have also indicated that they would like to have access to juvenile detention facility when they feel it is warranted, which hopefully is not very often, and we would like it to be none at all. But unfortunately, there seems to be the occasion when that would be an appropriate response. So it is not up to us to make that decision. It is up to the youth court judges in their determination of dealing with these children. And so what I was trying to get the city to do is to participate in how we might give them as many tools as possible to help us be responsive to the concerns of the community. And so that's the reasoning for this. That's the reason I brought it forward. I worked with President Hairston of the Lowndes County Board of Supervisors, as well as Judge Kaiser, who is the youth court judge in Lowndes County. And this was our effort to try to participate in a positive way to help facilitate what we had as concerns in our community. So it is basically reserving 2 beds that would be available 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, for which we would pay a rate that allows them to staff to that if we have need of it. And so that's where we are on this, and I welcome any questions or concerns or thoughts about it. But this is an interlocal agreement, which is what we would have to do in order to effectuate this with Lowndes County. And so that's what this is about. So anyone have any questions or thoughts? Alderman Vaughn.
No, ma'am, ma'am.
All right. Vice Mayor Perkins.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Bailey.
No, Mayor, thank you.
Alderman Brooks.
No, Mayor, thank you. No, Mayor,
Alderman
thank
Brooks. Alderman Sister.
This is not a permanent arrangement. It is something we can revisit if it turns out we're not interested in continuing the arrangement for some reason.
Of course, it has a termination opportunity in the clauses, and I think it's like 90 days with notice or something.
Yeah, I think it's even less than that.
It may be 30 days.
Yeah, 30
Yes,
days.
we certainly can at any time that we deem it's not working, or it's a problem, or any other reason that we need to get out of it. It's a matter of notifying Lowndes County.
And that's one of the things I think is really good about this arrangement, as opposed to trying to build and staff something even in conjunction with other communities. So.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Alderman Carver.
Just want to applaud you for reaching out and actually recognizing this, and Ms. Quarles and anyone else involved. One of my reservations from the start is I assumed we would have tried to build a building that, millions and millions of dollars just to house a few individuals at most. The way that this arrangement is in order is a pretty good bang for your buck. And I know we've had a spike in violent crime with COVID, and a lot of times it's youth that are just maybe at a different place in their life, and this gives an opportunity for them to try a different treatment or method other than what we traditionally try in the youth court system. So, yeah, I definitely support this. I think it's a good thing, and then knowing that it has a termination clause at some point, if that's something that years down the road we want to terminate and potentially build something. But for the time being, this is a definitely an option that we didn't have before us a year ago. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Carter. All right, that being said, do I have a motion?
Move approval.
I have a motion from Alderman Vaughn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Rupp. Thank you, sir. All right, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it is unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, now, on to the subject of the evening. This is the consideration of an 8th resolution for the mayor and the board of aldermen. And this is declaring additional measures relating to city employees for the control of contagious and infectious diseases for protection of public health and welfare and operation of the municipality and for related purposes. So in essence, the 8th resolution, when we had the 7th resolution, which basically expired, or we removed in April 30th as it relates to the graduation of the students from Mississippi State this past semester, then we were not under any kind of requirement for anything. It has been left up to the businesses. It's left up pretty much to the various individuals of how they were handling it. And so one of the things that we have seen, obviously, with the Delta variant was a spike. And that became much more problematic as time went on, and certainly concerning to all of us, as we heard from Dr. Landrum, and we've heard from numerous of our hospital administrators, et cetera, that the hospital is taxed. I brought this forward at this time now because I was interested in the fact that we did have an FDA approval, which my understanding was an FDA approval of the Pfizer vaccine. And it was my intention and my desire for us to consider how we would respond to that and if vaccines would be an appropriate response. And I will tell you, in full disclosure, I was in the military, so they lined us up and they vaccinated us, period. It wasn't do you want to, it's this is what you're going to do. And so, I view public service perhaps a little differently than some. And so I view what we do here and what our employees do as public service. And as such, I tend to be more hardline about it. And so I put it out that I asked the Board of Aldermen that we consider this. It is not a mandate. Let me be real clear. I am not, what we have here is a policy. And what has happened since we first began the discussion was a strong change in what has occurred. And I started to read the proposed bullet points to everyone to keep some of the dialogue from the citizens' comments more accurate, because what we have here is not that. This is, we heard, we listened, we heard, we had board discussion, we listened to the comments, I got emails and some texts and looked at Facebook and all the things that went with it. It took all that into consideration as to how we would move forward and even if we would move forward. Again, so what we have, what is here and what is in front of the board, some of it is from the work session, as a matter of fact, because we had some of that dialogue at the work session. And what has changed and what we have done since the work session is taken some things out and modified some things. And so I'm going to read the bullet points, and we can have discussion. But I want to make sure everyone understands that I'm the one who brought this forward. So absolutely, I will own it. And I do think that we as public servants have a higher calling, and that to me means we do not put our employees, our fellow employees, it doesn't mean we put the public in any additional jeopardy or danger, and then when they come in contact with us, they should be comfortable that we are doing the very best we can to keep them safe. So that's the place I come from. In all of this, I won't read the whole vaccine policy, but in order to support city employees in getting vaccinated and to protect the employees and the public effective immediately, the city will be implementing the following. And again, this is what is being proposed, and the board can certainly do with it what they wish. Bullet point 1 is allowing healthcare agencies to provide multiple on-site vaccinations free of charge for all employees. We're trying to do that. In fact, the police department this past Thursday night had a COVID vaccination clinic at the police department in the community room. And I intend for us to set up more of those. Mr. Ashford is reaching out to see where all we might do it and when we might do it. Unvaccinated employees will adhere to the following. 1 is require employees to wear a mask in all indoor locations on city property if they have not been fully vaccinated, unless isolated in individual offices with the doors closed. Employees who work outdoors who are not fully vaccinated must wear a mask in crowded spaces and when they are unable to maintain a distance of 6 feet. Another bullet point. Employees who have not taken the vaccine must use sick leave. So there is no not using your sick leave. You may use your sick leave. Must use sick leave for those days off sick due to COVID-related issues and days that include the requirement to quarantine. Donated time will not be allowed unless it is a catastrophic event, which is exactly what our other policy reads as it relates to donation of sick time. Bullet point, again, charge an insurance surcharge of $75 based on HIPAA rules for wellness programs to take effect on December 1, 2021. Vaccinated employees. The city will offer paid leave for employees to get vaccinated and an additional 8 hours to rest if employees are not feeling well after the vaccination. Employees who have gotten the vaccination but get the virus or who must quarantine because of virus protocols will be able to do so with paid leave up to 5 days for 40 hours. Being fully and properly vaccinated under this policy includes all individuals who have received 2 doses in the 2-dose vaccine series, such as Pfizer or Moderna, or 1 dose in the single-dose vaccine series, such as Johnson & Johnson. So if an employee does not meet those requirements, such employee is not fully vaccinated in accordance with this policy. So that is the policy that is being proposed for the board's consideration this evening. And it has changed from our work session, and so I want everyone to understand that we have, certainly I have, and our HR person has, and our board has, added items and discussion points, and this is what was sort of the response to that. So having said that and declared my state, obviously we will go through the board to have further discussion. So Alderman Carver, I'll start with you.
Well, just some of the things I've thought about. I guess I say oftentimes I write notes as people call, and I'm just going to say some of these don't flow in nature, but just some things that I think about. It keeps me up at night as an elected official. City attorney, we know that, and this is nothing personal to the mayor, but she was attempting to rush through a FDA Pfizer announcement to start rushing this, and we have emails come out and everything saying you're real hesitant. What are your major reservations from a legal side? I've heard a lot of things tonight I'm still trying to digest, and somebody saying you don't have to take it, and you don't have to tell somebody if you're vaccinated or not. What are your major reservations as our legal defense in this?
Yeah, I don't have major reservations the way the policy is written right now. To let you know exactly where the law is, and let me start at the most extreme example and work my way back to what the policy is now. This starts with the U.S. Supreme Court opinion in 1905, Jacobson versus Commonwealth of Massachusetts. In that case, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a citywide vaccine for smallpox. Not just employees, but citywide, and that's been held to be legal. Since then, in the face of this pandemic, several businesses and public institutions have enacted vaccine mandates. One example is the Methodist Hospital in Houston. That was upheld. 2 other examples from a public institution standpoint are Indiana University and UConn. Both of those vaccine mandates have been upheld. And so we are steps removed from either of those things because it's not a citywide mandate and it's not even an employee mandate. So if those things are legal, then these incentives should also be legal. Having said that, here's my folder on COVID law, and it grows every day. And right now, there's not a definitive Fifth Circuit case or Mississippi Supreme Court case that specifically addresses some of these policy provisions. So might the law ebb and flow and change over time? It might. But based on the snapshot of the law that we have right now, I think the policy checks the boxes and is legal.
To try to wrap all this up, I'll tell you this. I think from the very start, I told you that I'm a huge proponent of herd immunity. I'm not sure that we could properly ever contain this virus. In a perfect world, we should follow it, and I've said this from the very start. From my previous, I was looking at some certifications today, and Center for Domestic Preparedness. bronze level trainer with a previous life in some pandemic influenza classes we taught, infectious disease. Always from the start, more in the Homeland Security world, called a unified approach, but everybody statewide should have been doing the same thing. Whether your person to follow is the governor or the state top health official, we failed miserably as a society and especially as a state and multiple states. I was afraid of what would happen, which would be a culture of chaos, and that's what we have. This is probably the first generation in the history of time to face something like this with social media, and so it heightens everybody's opinions, and everybody's got an opinion about everything nowadays. We've seen this, and we all know this, and we're all experts at this now, from what you've read, and myself included. I think this is terribly late to do something like this as a city. If this was something that the majority of this board wishes to do, honestly, from a disease standpoint, it probably should have been done at the very onset. If this was a disease that had, I see survivability rates of 98 to 99%, some odd percent. If this was a super virus or something that we used to study, I definitely don't ever think we should be wearing homemade stitched together masks. Originally, our topic started with N95 grade and greater. You remember that was in short supply as a nation, and then soon we turned into these things that your grandmother and grandfather are stitching at the house and selling for $5. And from an infectious disease standpoint, they're not even medical grade. But it's a society that sometimes what we have to do is to recognize that, and it's a feel good, and we're going to wear something that's cloth fabric. I've seen all sorts of studies, as we all have. These net gaiters are probably, hate to call you out, but probably worse than a mask, and so those are things that we need to be cognizant of. Our employees, and this is not just as it pertains tonight, but our employees and the personnel, typically in a business environment, are 60 to 80% of your cost of your budget, and she knows this much more than I do. They're literally golden bars. They're sitting there. I was doing some mild calculations of some of the people that have told me they're going to quit if some of these things passes, and it was upwards in the $1 million to $2 million range of what we have invested in these guys and ladies. Much more if you consider some of the time and things, and then from a life safety standpoint of what some of these guys are actually heroes, they're walking heroes, and we need to protect those. I'd say from an infectious disease standpoint, some of the things that bother me as an elected official, if you were to put a picture of the map up, and I'm not going to ask Matt to do that, but in a perfect world, if we could draw a circle around Starkville and make sure everybody in there is vaccinated and everybody in there is masked, we at the same time are celebrating a season called football season where we put 50 to 80,000 people in a dome that's 200 yards wide, and that's nationwide. I've watched videos all weekend of Wisconsin and Texas and name a SEC school in the packed stadium. So we as a society have failed miserably, and we can't figure out what we want. We want to require masks, but we put 100,000 people in a 300-yard dome. We kick a baseball team out of the World Series, and we have 15,000 people an hour later. It just blows my mind from a protection standpoint. I believe at the basis of this discussion is probably the fundamental cause that keeps me up at night and thinking of why I have problems with some of these things. And it's probably just the fact that I want the opportunity, Ben Carver wants the opportunity to meet with my medical professional and make the decisions that are best for me personally, not for you, and not to sound sly at the remark, but I'm worried about my health more than you, and I think that's what everybody's worried about in this pandemic, and that's what the arguments of pro and for the mask mandate will have in a little bit, is people's health. And so I think when you start backing people against the wall and you force them to not have a choice, I think that's probably the greatest failure we could have as a society. So, I think our employees want a choice. I think, people all the time get diagnosed with a terminal cancer illness and they choose not to fight it. I know two personally that have chosen not to fight it, and that's something I struggle to grasp and comprehend, but that was their choice, and they passed on naturally and without. And that's not my place to dictate what they think they ought to do with a cancer diagnosis. So that being said, I will be against this tonight. I'm more of a free. I never want to use my body, my choice, but that's used in a much more extreme environment than this. But I want these guys and these ladies who I think are really going to are going to walk out, who are worth millions to us as a city. I hate to see you go. I mean, so I think y'all all know how I stand, but I will yield at this time. Thank you.
Alderman Strunk?
I am supportive of this, just as I am supportive of the idea of wearing a mask. I don't think there's any one solution to this. Vaccines are one, masks are another, early treatment is another. There's no magic bullet. To the idea that this is late to the party, the vaccines were only, the Pfizer vaccine only received its FDA approval 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't remember the exact date. So it's, to have acted before now would have required us asking people to take a vaccination that had not gotten FDA approval. I do think that individuals, and I feel this way on lots of issues, that individuals should have the ability to make decisions about their own health care. But as public officials, I think we have a responsibility not to individuals, but to the public at large. And I think that means that we need to take whatever measures are reasonable and legal and and allow us to operate as we need to as a city to keep the public safe. And the public is all of our employees, it's all the people who interact with our employees. It is a much larger group that we're having to consider than an individual. So I'm supportive.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I was a bit distressed at the reoccurring number of folks who came up to speak against a vaccine mandate when that was never on the table. There was never an agenda that had a vaccine mandate. And I encourage folks to go to the city's website where you can pull up every agenda and you can see for yourself what we're going to talk about. And I hope that gives you some peace of mind. I still welcome anyone that wishes to speak, but some folks were very emotional about it, and I wondered if they had known that there was no mandate, vaccine mandate on the table, if we could have saved them some of that anxiety. The second thing is I'm a bit of a libertarian, and I think that everyone's entitled to go do what they want to do, be it I've made some incredibly dumb decisions in my life, and that's not related to you deciding whether to get a vaccine, but I just believe that folks should have some control over their actions. But having said that, let's look at the pain points for unvaccinated employees, and there are really 3 now. It's come down to 3. Require employees to wear a mask in all indoor locations unless you're in your office by yourself. That's the same it's the same policy I follow at Mississippi State, and I think that's reasonable. The second one, employees who've not taken the vaccine and get sick use sick days. It's the same thing I have to do at Mississippi State. So I think that's reasonable. The third point, the surcharge of $75, I'm not crazy about, but those are the 3 points we're really talking about now. Okay, wearing a mask unless you're by yourself in your office, or taking sick leave if you get sick. And I can live with those.
Thank you. Alderman Brooks?
Well, echoing what Alderman Rupp said about the issue of the vaccine mandate that had everybody rightfully upset. That was never on the table. But even so, the first draft that we came up with, I wasn't necessarily supportive of that draft. But as the mayor said, we listened and we made changes to the draft, and we've come up with this policy, and Alderman Rupp just did a better job than I could do of going over the pain points. The surcharge of $75, no, I'm not wild about that, but that's December the 1st. There's a lot of things can happen between now and December the 1st. But, so we're not requiring a vaccine, but we encourage it, and based on the data that I've seen, and I am vaccinated. I'll just tell you right now, I'm not violating any HIPAA laws by telling you that, but I am vaccinated. But based on the data I've seen, I think that's, that's a good move by the city to encourage it, not to mandate, but to encourage it and offer some incentive to get vaccinated. Because, again, the data that I've seen says that the vaccines are, in fact, making things better for us. I yield.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Bacon.
Mayor, thank you. Employees, our employees are going to consider this, will consider this to be punitive, and they're not going to comply. It's just basically going to hack people off and going to lose employees. And with that said, you know, people talk about the constitutional rights and stuff. I've heard that for a year now. You know, seatbelt laws are mandated. No guns on airplanes are mandated, et cetera. Drug mandates apply for our personal safety. Everybody, you don't get on an airplane with a gun. Polio vaccine. I'm old enough to remember polio vaccinations because they became available in the 1960s, and we were grateful. Hell, we were grateful for the medical science and research that gave us a vaccine because we no longer had to worry about being crippled by a dreaded disease. Science and reason has now been politicized. I'm just going to say that. Mississippi has the lowest vaccination rate in the country, and we will be wearing masks into the foreseeable future because of the unwillingness of the majority of our adult population to get vaccinated, straight up. Unvaccinated people now make up 98% of coronavirus patient hospitalizations are filling up the intensive care units of hospital systems throughout the state. Somebody mentioned that, but I thought about, okay, if this ICU at Starkville is full, an ICU in Columbus is full, an ICU in Tupelo is full, and UMMC's got a darn parking garage that's got coronavirus people in it, and you have a car wreck, where in the hell are you going to go? Where are they going to put people? You know? What's happening is unvaccinated people that get sick and go in the hospital clam up, clog up the system, and then the ICU at UMMC, the OS Medical School, doesn't work. Ain't nobody, there's no room. This Associated Press thing that I read, they said the article states that there's rampant, according to doctors and nurses, and they're people on the front lines down at the UMMC, you know, that there's rampant denial and misinformation about the COVID-19 in the nation's least vaccinated state. This article also states that people being admitted to UMMC and visitors are in denial about the severity of their own illness or for the virus itself, with visitors frequently trying to enter the hospital without masks and the recognition on patients' faces when they realize they made a mistake in not getting vaccinated. They're really sick, and there's really nothing you can do, nothing they can do about it at that point in time. Because of low vaccination rates, mask wearing, and social distancing, we're going to have to fall back on vaccination, you know, on mask wearing and social distancing. I will say one other thing, and I will yield. And this thing, this article said, to deal with the overflow COVID patients, Christian relief charity Samaritan's Purse set up an emergency field hospital in the parking garage of the UMMC's Children's Hospital. That's Frank, for those of you who don't know, that's Frank and Graham, Billy Graham's son's organization. The hospital is treating an average of 15 patients a day, COVID patients, that has a capacity for 7 patients. Nurse Kelly Sykes, who's also treated COVID patients in hotspots like California and Italy, said it's heart-wrenching to know that some of the severe cases could have been prevented with the vaccine. Many people are so sick they can't talk. Nurses walk around with scripture verses on duct tape on their scrubs and will recite them to patients. Samaritan's Purse is an international disaster relief organization with missions spanning multiple continents. Sykes, this is the nurse, has responded to 20 missions, including Haiti, the Philippines, Liberia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and other places. Quote, to respond to the United States is quite surreal for us, she said. It's a challenge because usually home is stable. And so when we deploy, we're just going to the disaster. This is the first time where the disaster, this is the first time where home is where the disaster is. Basically, she's saying we've turned into like a third world country in the way we're approaching and treating and trying to mitigate and get rid of the coronavirus that's spreading in our country. I yield, Mayor. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to be very brief. Thanks for the recognition, Mayor. Mayor, let me first say that I want to commend you for your leadership in bringing this policy forward to us. And I also want to go on record tonight to concur with my distinguished colleague from Lafayette County.
That's twice now. It's a tough night.
I said it correctly, all right?
You did. I'm sorry,
Okay,
Vice Mayor. I was joking.
To our honorable city attorney that this policy is legal. Under our police powers, which our attorney will agree with, requires this mayor and board as a governing body to take reasonable actions to promote the health, safety, and welfare of those within our jurisdiction. We have constantly and repeatedly, and still do, hear from medical and health experts that indicate that vaccinations with regard to this virus is what is needed to help eradicate and curb the spread of the coronavirus and the Delta variant. So in regard to that credible and reliable and ongoing testimony and statements that we hear from the health and medical experts, we are to adhere to that. The virus has been in place, to our knowledge, since on about March of 2020, and this is a very reasonable action that we must do. As our honorable mayor has articulated very carefully tonight, that this is not a mandate. This is a policy where we are urging those city employees to submit to the vaccinations. And of course, if there's non-compliance with the policy, there are rules and regulations like with any matter where there's non-compliance. As the attorney cited, that there are cases, and I like that case particularly, attorney, with that Houston Methodist Hospital, where that federal court judge, and it's a 2021 case, makes it real clear that the employer has a right to mandate these vaccinations. And that court went on record to say, attorney, that if that does not happen, then the employer has a right to terminate employment. And there were some arguments in that case made trying to carve out public policy does not allow that. And the court in Texas, the federal court that is, said that public policy is not an exception to at-will employment. At-will employment is a long-standing recognized doctrine in the state of Mississippi, and that doctrine was brought home to us in a case that came out in June of 1993. And that was a case, the key thing I want to bring out on that case, attorney, I think would be relevant, would be the H.B. Maxey versus Robert A. Smith et al. It's a U.S. District Court case that was opinion that was written by our now senior judge, the Honorable Davidson, who that made it real clear that we are a jurisdiction that recognizes at-will employment. So with that being said, I'm going to conclude by saying this. If the employees do not comply with the policy, then the policy has a provision in there that says that non-compliance can result up to and termination. And the policy is reasonable, and I'm going to conclude by saying that if there's anyone who comes before this board for non-compliance with the policy, I'm going to vote for termination. It's going to be on the record right now. Because what the mayor's doing, she's the chief executive officer of the city. She brought this to us. And under the statute that governs our code charter municipality, she has superintending authority over the municipal affairs of this city. And so the way that this policy is written, upon being passed by this board tonight, which I anticipate from all the comments that it will be, has the authority to interpret the provisions, attorney, of this policy. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So again, this is all about public health and safety. That's what this policy is all about. And that's our job. That's what we did with the preceding 7 resolutions, and that's what we're doing with this 8th resolution. It's a good policy. It's legal. If anyone wants to challenge it, we're going to win this in court. So that's the bottom line on it. And Mayor, I intend to vote for this policy. I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Alderman Vaughn.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, we wonder why the data is on African Americans, why African Americans are so hesitant about taking this vaccination. But you have to think about the days of Tuskegee when the African Americans used to be experimented on, and that's why African Americans are so hesitant about taking vaccination, hesitant about going to doctor, because how they was experimented in old days, and that still is hid on the inside of them. That's why they are so hesitant. I understand that this is a policy, but still, I don't feel good forcing nobody to do anything. Even though I'm vaccinated, majority of my family is vaccinated, but I don't feel good forcing somebody else to be vaccinated because this is what we want. This is what we want. I know it's not a policy, and then if you don't get vaccinated, you get a fine, and you come all the way up to determination. Is that right? I don't think that's right. I just feel like if we put it out there, encourage them, educate them, what to do, what they need to do. I understand something need to be in place. I mean, we can go back to the mandated mask ordinance. Something need to be done, but instead of just forcing someone to be vaccinated because we feel like, I know it's for the health, safety, and the welfare of this community. I know that's what we're supposed to look forward for. But also, we still can't take a person's rights from them. I look at that too. But if I make a proposal, it would be to, if you go to any grocery stores, pharmacies, you have to wear them. You have to, when you go into the hospital or in the doctor's office, you got to have a mask on. You can't go to neither one of those places unless you got a mask. And people, when they go in there, they don't fuss, they don't argue, they don't do anything. They know they got to have a mask and enter to those places. But my recommendation, if I were, my proposal would be that we make it mandatory to put masks back on when you go in places essential, places where you get your food from, where you get your medicine from. You got to, because you got to go to these places. You go to a restaurant, that's your choice. But people have to go to these places to get food, to eat, have to get medicine to take. I mean, that's where I would go. That's the way I would go. But forcing this, I can't support this.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Vaughn. Okay, Alderman Beatty, that's you.
Mayor, could I ask the council, our city council, to weigh in on the thing Alderman Vaughn just talked about? It kind of ties, what's the word we all use now? Segue? Segue. Yes. 20 years ago, I'd never heard that word. No, 10 years ago, or not, but now we use it. So it sounds segues into what? So would you?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Alderman. So when all the COVID legislation started back in March of 2020 with the governor's orders, at first there was a distinction between essential and non-essential businesses. But in late May, with Executive Order 1492, the governor totally did away with the distinction between essential and non-essential businesses, basically now deeming that all businesses are essential. So there's really no state law on the books that bifurcates an essential from a non-essential business. And therefore, Alderman Vaughn, just candidly, I would have a concern with us drawing that line because the state no longer draws that line. And I think that would open us up to perhaps a challenge that we were treating some businesses differently than others without a real legal basis to do so. So I have a slight concern with that.
Now, Oxford has reinstated masks. We talked about that just briefly a little bit earlier in the meeting. Tell me about what you know about what they've done and the reason behind what they did. There again, I think it ties in with it.
Yeah, I think the reasoning, it just comes from reading their 13th resolution because they've done findings of facts in their resolution like we've done in this 8th resolution. And they relied heavily on the Baptist Hospital up there declaring an internal state of emergency. And so what they did was they reenacted their citywide mask mandate, saying that you've either got to wear a mask into all businesses or show proof of vaccination. So it's like it was back in April, where you wear your mask into the restaurant, you sit down, you can take it off, but you put it back on.
But that point, back in that day, nobody was vaccinated, hardly anyone was vaccinated, so there was no vaccination card you could pull out, and now people can do that, and that's certificate of replacement without
a mask if they've got a
So that's the alternative arrangement that they're traveling under.
Okay. Mayor, you?
Yes, sir. Alderman Carter.
Just for the record, City Attorney, this is no requirement whatsoever for a city employee to be mandated, correct?
That's
I
correct.
mean, to be vaccinated, correct?
That's right. There's no vaccine
And-
mandate, no compulsion.
Does this lean, do you think this document, it's just a strong urge, but do you think this is leaning toward or against any kind of vaccination mandate, or do you think it's unbiased?
I think the purpose of it, as I understand it, is to incentivize vaccinations, but to not compel them.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I would just say again, it's such a highly contentious situation, probably the most highly contentious is when you start involving people's personal health. This is a moderate, middle of the road somewhat, pushing pretty hard toward to the side, pushing for a overtime vaccination. I think it sets a precedent for this board with whatever numbers this vote will play out with tonight could, hey, next meeting require mandatory vaccination. And I think this, again, disenfranchises our city employees and puts them under almost a wedge driven between the pro-vaccine and the anti-vaccine or the pro-choice people. And this is one of those things, again, that while I know the HIPAA laws don't necessarily apply to whether you know who all is vaccinated, that people will know. And when your situation, you work hand in hand with people over time, you'll know. And this will just further drive a wedge in between shift workers and city workers that work together and their opinions. And then that would be the last thing I'll say is, how are we going to know who is city attorney? I mean, as more people get vaccinated, how are we going to know? I was just thinking of the firemen, for example. They have to show each and every shift that they haven't received the vaccination card yet, or what would they do?
Yeah, and I don't know the exact inner workings of how we're going to administrate that. I don't know if the mayor wants to speak to that, or the human resources director wants to speak to that.
Nav, if you'll come up, please.
Mr. Ashford, there are rules that certainly apply in terms of the HIPAA and the privacy element to that, and that's HR's area of expertise.
Currently, we have asked all of the employees to provide us with their cards, and so my assistant is keeping track per day on the employees who are turning in their cards to us.
Is that in writing somewhere? Is that in here somewhere, or are you just coming up with it on?
No. So we sent out an email asking for each department head to have their employees provide us with their vaccination cards.
And those are kept separately from their personnel files, right?
It is correct.
Does that not need to be included? The protocol and mandate of what we're going to require employees?
That would follow under our existing medical policies that are associated with HIPAA, and we've already got those in place.
We do.
Is that something accurate, City Attorney? Does it need to be in public record, or, I mean, that's what we're...
So I think
It's news to me,
Yeah,
as an alderman.
So the way that would work is you guys could certainly write it into the policy if you wanted to. At the same time, if HR department continued to follow every and all HIPAA regulations related to vaccines, they could continue to do it administratively, so long as
That's fine.
they stick to that.
So everything he's done so far has been legal by asking for vaccination cards from the department?
Yeah, there's not been a law out there or a challenge on that ground that has been upheld to my knowledge, that just merely asking somebody, have you been vaccinated or not, trumps any type of incentive or mandatory vaccine policy.
Interesting. Yeah, you.
All right. Alderman Rupp. Oh, sorry.
Just want to address one statement from Alderman Carver, where you said it kind of divided us into those who might lean toward a mandate and those against. I support this policy because it mirrors, to me, Mississippi State in a lot of ways, but I am against mandating vaccines. I just want to tell you that.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Sistrunk, I saw your hand.
I just wanted to move approval and move us on to a vote.
Okay, I have a motion from Alderman Sistrunk. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Vice Mayor Perkins.
Mayor, may I ask Alderman Sistrunk a question?
Through me? Sure.
Through you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Sistrunk, is this affecting have you had any indication from our health insurance carriers that non-compliance in getting the vaccine is going to affect our premium, our health insurance premium?
No. We've not had that particular discussion. Our premiums are always driven by our medical
ratio.
history,
Yeah.
and they have a rolling 3 years that they look at. So if vaccinations means that our costs are reduced, it should help with our amount that we have to budget for health insurance expenses.
So when we are putting on this.
And to date, Alderman Beatty, just for point of record, we've incurred about $200,000 in claims related to COVID.
So on the back end, we probably will see some health insurance increase. If you incur
could.
$200,000 in claims from one source, you're going to see an increase. So in light of that, I don't think $75 surcharge is punitive or unreasonable to offset.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of his comment.
He said he doesn't think that it's punitive, that it, given in light of that cost to us, it's not punitive.
The charge of the insurance surcharge, $75, based on what Alderman Sistrum said about the claims incurred to our health insurance carrier, Blue Cross, our self-funded plan, in the amount of $200,000 plus dollars. Certainly, this is not excessive to expect to, vaccinate folks will and could have a breakthrough case and catch coronavirus. The statistics say that the cases are much less severe and people recover faster than folks that get particularly this that get the coronavirus who are unvaccinated. That's where the seriousness and expense of our health insurance would run the cost of Alderman Sistrum.
That's my understanding, yes.
Thank you.
Alderman Brooks.
Just one more question or clarification from Alderman Sistrum. The $200,000, that's this year?
That's since, let me think, it's within the last 12 months. I'm not sure if it crossed fiscal years. I think it's this fiscal year.
And do you have an amount, just like in the last month? I think I heard you mention.
We've had 35 days of, 35 employees out of about 300 who've missed time related to COVID. That's driven some overtime costs related to COVID. So there's I don't have a quantified number for that.
The month of August was 36,000 cost, and I think that was Alderman Sistrunk had the 12-month through the end of July.
And those were medical claims.
Yeah, and then in August the cost was 36,000.
The COVID cost was 36,000.
Yes. Okay. I have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll put it to a vote. And if you would, please answer yea or nay as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Nay.
Alderman Sistrum.
Yay.
Alderman Rowe.
Yay.
Alderman Brooks.
Yay.
Alderman Beatty.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Nay.
All right, by a vote of 5-2, the motion carries. So that would be the 8th resolution plus the Appendix A, which is the policy. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is consideration of negotiating a contract with Sports Facilities Management to manage all parks within the city of Starkville. This is something that came to us or came as a part of a discussion that I have had as we are gearing up to do Cornerstone, which we have approved Sports Facilities Management to manage our Cornerstone Park. We, as we know, came to a point where we were having some difficulty in managing. We've lost some employees. It seemed to me that if we were going to take the opportunity to look at Sports Facilities Management taking over all of our parks, this would be the optimum time. And to that end, I called the city of Brandon, which the SFM group have now gotten into a contract with, and I talked to the mayor, and he was quite pleased, and basically what he said was that we had built our parks, and they have a very robust park system. We had built our parks around a single individual, and when Ramey retired, we could not find anyone to come in and do management, and we interviewed Sports Facilities Management and found them to be very professional, which I think we all found when we hired them to run Cornerstone. They have a deep bench, shall we say, and have brought to the table a number of things that the city did not have, such as marketing skills, et cetera, et cetera. And so it struck me that this would be an opportunity for us to look at this in a very strategic and professional way. And so that was what this is in large part about. They also manage Albertville, Alabama, and I spoke with that mayor, and he too was pleased with the work that they had done and believed that it was a positive experience for them. So, having said that, Mr. Sparks has lingered through the evening with us, and he is here to share some thoughts about it, and is going to, if you would please, let us know your thoughts on managing what would end up being all the parks, and that we certainly have sent to them the information relative to the number of parks we have and our personnel complement. And so, if you would, sir.
Thank you all for having me here tonight. A couple of things that we bring to the table, and this isn't our first rodeo at doing the Parks and Rec scenario, and we're pretty proud of Albertville. It was our first transitional situation where they had a small Parks and Rec department and probably a dozen fields in some form or fashion, very outdated, and they took them 7 to 10 years to develop a program where they built an entire 140-acre complex, including aquatics, baseball, softball, dog trails, you name it. It's very, very nice. And in that, they realized two things. One, they didn't have the expertise across a wide spectrum of events to be able to support that magnitude of operation. And two, they wanted the best quality programming for their kids and the community. And they designed it in such a way that it wasn't about pay to play, it wasn't about tournaments, it was about the kids. And so where we come into that situation and what we're doing now in Brandon, I have a team of people in Brandon right now that are doing a detailed assessment of all their parks and rec so that we can start off their program as well. So one, that we have a business model that obviously can reduce the expense that you guys typically occur. We won't break you even. We won't make you profitable in Parks and Rec. It's not the nature of Parks and Rec. But we will reduce what comes out of your general funds that relates to operating Parks and Rec through a variety of efficiencies and staffing levels and things of that nature. As we're already doing cornerstones, we would be able to keep it under one umbrella and expand without creating a duplicity of two different organizations. The biggest thing that in our world is that we go in and look at programs, and you may have a program that is youth related that is okay, or you may think is okay, and then what we will do is we will market it, and we will promote it, and we will build it better and more of a structured program. So we have modules for just about every sport played, where we train a coach how to be a coach. We go through all the background checks on the coach. We develop safety mechanisms for the children and people that are exposed to their children. So it's not a dad that volunteers on Tuesday night and goes out and shows the kid how to play with a soccer ball. It's a coach that understands the basic fundamentals of how to coach youth sports. And then we all the way up to, this is how much a hat costs, this is how much a set of shoes costs, this is how, so we help the process go forward, and we develop a quality training for us. The child that has the ability to play in tournament ball has the ability to play in tournament ball, and that's very, very good. And they have a really rewarding experience. There's no reason why the child that doesn't have the ability to play tournament ball can't have that same quality experience. So our goal is to kind of merge together the kids with the haves and the have-nots. So the kids with the have-nots have the opportunity to excel in similar sports activities as the ones that may have the haves. So I think that's the biggest thing that we bring to the table. We can reduce your financial responsibilities, and we can increase your quality. And we look forward to the opportunity to have that if it comes about.
And one of the things, and it played right into what he was saying, is I saw an email today that the soccer folks are looking for coaches, and they can't find coaches because dads are busy or mothers are busy or whatever. And so, this is an opportunity for them to have that coaching experience with the little training that goes with it. And I think it allows others to come along, as you say, those who might not be quite so well endowed so that they can come, play sports without a little bit of assistance. And I do think the additional programming, things that we haven't thought about before, like lacrosse or other sports that we haven't seen yet, that give us an opportunity to introduce kids to things that they've not yet done, and that may be up-and-coming sports. So anyway, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to take a look at. So questions? Alderman Rupp?
What is the plan on, obviously, we want you to first try to assimilate city employees, so how does that work when you come into the place?
So I'm pretty proud of being able to do what we think is the right thing to do for city employees. Is most of the job titles and skill sets are the same in the Parks and Rec world that we would desire in open positions that we would have. So if you were to take the current programmed or proposed staffing structure of Cornerstone, we would expand and make that umbrella bigger. And then as city employees, we put them into different buckets. Okay, is there a vested employee that's near retirement? We don't want that person to ever sacrifice what they've paid into and what they've worked for. So in Albertville, for example, we had he's actually working for me right now over in Brandon. We had a 25-year Parks and Rec person that just needed another 10 to 12 months. Okay, and so we were able to make sure that person was taken care of for those 10 to 12 months on one side of the ledger, the city.
He remained in the city.
Right. He retired, and 12 days later we hired him, and he's the director of operations at Aldermen now, and he's doing a fantastic job, and he's assessing the fields over in Brandon tonight. Okay, and so then there are people that aren't vested. That we would look at skill sets, and we would let everyone have the opportunity to apply for jobs and be interviewed, and out of 100 people that we've done this with in some form or fashion, I had 4 people elect not to work for our company. And of those 4, one came back after a year later and came on and is now working with us. I'm very, very happy it was. So I have 3 that did not.
Wages, how do they compare yours to us?
I won't deny the fact that I can't match city benefits from a standpoint of the fringe, I guess you would call it, okay, or the perks. But we typically are able to have on a full-time person, an adequate and responsible benefits package. And then on the front side, we're able to allow a little bit more money hourly or salary-wise. It usually averages somewhere in the, depending upon the market, $2 to $4 an hour more in their pocket versus but I can't match this. No one, I would never profess to. So,
is there an opportunity, I'm sorry, man, I yielded to this.
That's okay.
Is there an opportunity for an employee to decide on their own whether they want to stay in the city system, retirement system, benefit system at a lower wage versus come to you at a higher wage, less benefits? Is there any option for the employee?
No, there wouldn't be, and I caveat that with, unless there was a city position that they could migrate over to. The person that I mentioned to you that stayed with the city of Alderville went to work in the Public Works Department, and he stayed in the Public Works Department for another year, and he was not vested, and he was not anywhere close to being vested, and he decided that just isn't what he wanted to do, so he came over to the other side. But it would be the city employees would no longer be city employees, they would be sports facility management.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Alderman Carver, sorry, I skipped around a little bit.
Well, obviously, we've had some some turnover in parks, and that's probably guiding some of this discussion. And privatization of public services can be one of those things. It can be efficient and effective. And but I'm not in favor of it really, other than maybe sanitation for something long-term set in. Has this been a goal of this board, mayor, or someone in parks? Is there a phase out? We're looking at 3 to 5 years, or is it something y'all are thinking long-term we're going to maintain privatization?
Well, I would hope it would work, and we would maintain it long-term, and we would have a relationship with them that would be beneficial to both, because that's the goal, is a win-win. We want them to do well, but we want, even more so, want us to do well. And so I think what they're bringing to the table is a professionalism that, we are still working our way through that, and we've had to recover from, several losses of leaders and that sort of thing. So I just think this is an opportunity for us to bring them in, and if we decide at some later date we want to take it on our own, then we certainly have that opportunity, because that will be part of the contract.
Like asset for asset, or person for person, is this a cost savings to the city? If they're gonna have 20 employees, and let's say we had our 20, and by the time we pay for retirement and benefits and all these things, is this a cost savings, or is this a cost of more?
Well, I think, excuse me, I'm sorry. I think what they envision, I would envision, is that the Cornerstone folks would also play a role in the overall picture. So you would have a cost savings associated with them being able to use the personnel that will be at Cornerstone in a broader way. So that would be my guess, is it would be a cost savings.
Do we know that? I mean, is that something we can say with affirmation, that we know this is cheaper or more?
Yeah, I have a budget that would save you in staffing costs based on 2019 and $20 for the city that was posted on public record. I think your Parks and Rec salaries, full-time, part-time, were $903,000. We would be running somewhere in the range of about $575,000.
Another thing I've heard local vendors, just Jersey vendors, said they've been trying to reach out to you or somebody with y'all's organization and making sure that you still shop local. Do y'all plan on buying uniforms locally, or is that something you search nationwide for?
We try to work with a local market on just about everything we do. We go from local to outside. We don't carry with us a national brand that we would prefer over one or the other. We try to buy from our local vendors.
Alderman Sistrum?
I think that when the city can provide a service and do it well, it's in the city's best interest to do it. Sometimes the city finds that there are people who can provide a service better than what we can provide. We don't have the experience, we don't have the resources, that sort of thing. That's true. We do it in the engineering department. We do it in utilities all the time, where we contract out for outside services rather than trying to take all that in-house. This is just a little different in that we've been doing it in-house. We've identified somebody that I think can do this better than we have been able to do this. And that's not a negative comment about our current or any of our past employees. It's just that y'all bring a level of experience and a set of resources that we simply don't have and won't develop. So I was encouraged. One of the questions that I had when this first came up was, would you be able to work within what we had budgeted in the general fund for parks? And the answer was a resounding yes, that there would be no increase in funding, that you would provide us budgets that we have to approve. I'm assuming if there are fee structures and those sorts of things, that we'll have input with all of that, because y'all want this to work as much as we want this to work. So,
absolutely. And when we started developing a budget, and the mayor received what we call high-low range, I'm a little more OCD. I developed a budget that is ready to present to you in detail, and in that, we are expanding what you currently would make in programming, but we used your pay structure, what you currently advertise out in your community. So if you are charging $25 for a kid to play youth soccer, okay, we didn't jack it to $50 just because we're the new kids in town. Okay, we're taking similar price ranges. Okay, and then what our goal is, that we were going to market and promote that program to where instead of 150 kids joining, 250 or 300 kids join. And then we would look at food and beverage, we would look at ancillary things that generate money that aren't being recaptured today. And so those are the type of things that we look at. We tried to match your 2019-20 expense budget verbatim, okay, in that what you already had spent or what you knew you had spent was a good gauge for us is there an economy to scale to that? Is there a way to make it more efficient? Yeah, sure there is. That would be our job, that would be our challenge, and that goes down to our execution.
One of the things that I've talked about with our current parks administration is the idea that we have a pretty high poverty rate here in the city of Starkville, and that it would be, in my opinion, it would be a good thing if we could offer reduced fees or even sometimes free participation, if we could structure that appropriately. Is that something y'all can do?
We do. We have a program that we've tried to work into a variety of communities, some with limited success and some with very much a high degree of success, called the Access Program, where we will go out to major contributors within your community, and we would ask them for not necessarily money out of their marketing dollars or their sponsorship dollars, but out of their community outreach dollars, because every major corporation has two funds, okay? And so we would look for community outreach dollars, and what we would do is we'd put that into a bucket, and we'd say, okay, we can offer a soccer child's fee is X amount of money plus their socks, their shorts, or whatever. And so we can scholarship this many children into a basketball program, a soccer program, a t-ball program, whatever it may be. And so then we can come back and we can say, okay, with your corporate dollars, your outreach dollars, you have sponsored 15 kids, 20 kids, 30 kids for day camp, but it's all programs that are non-travel ball associated. They're youth, up-and-coming recreational programs for the kids that would have have-nots versus the kids that have the haves. I'm not going to give a kid a scholarship that, his parents have the wherewithal to. And what we used as a gauge was, in Hoover, where we piloted it, we used the criteria of mandatory school lunches. Okay,
That's an easy one, yeah.
So we do have a provision for that.
Thank you.
Alderman Brooks. Alderman Rupp, you had your shot. Did you want another one?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, Mayor.
No?
No comments, Mayor, thank you.
Alderman Hall.
He said something about quality, and that was my main concern, the quality, and y'all, everybody know how I am about outsourcing. Everybody know I'm against outsourcing because I've seen so much it fail. But my main concern is the quality of work, because I look at homegrown and home peoples, they get an opportunity to look at what I did for my community, what I did there, and I'm just wondering, how would that play a part? Will that still stay connected to the city of Starkville when we still get the quality of work, but you touched it? So, and then you say about the have and the have-nots, we have a lot of have-nots that don't get a chance to, I have opportunity as the haves. But, you touched a couple of the good things.
We're an agent of the city, okay? We would be an agent of the city. We currently are in the Cornerstone involvement, and we expand that role. But our goal here is, and one of our mission statements is to better the economic development of a city through sports and its youth. And so we consider that to go from within out versus out within. And so we try to hire, and we try to support, and we try to build from within, not without. I have one of my facilities that I oversee is Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and they're on the edge of Edgecombe County, which is very, very rural, very, very depressed. It was imperative that we hired a GM there that came from that city and that was part of that community and grew up in that community. And he's doing a phenomenal job now. I mean, he called me tonight and told me that they not only want us to continue to market the event center the way we're marketing the event center, but they want us to work on their marketing of their downtown redevelopment and the master plan. So our goal would be to do the same thing from within here, work with you, collaborate with you, and be your agents, and then execute as you need to be. We're your contractor. Our contract will be very strictly written, and we will have milestones with it, and we'll have requirements, and we will stick to them.
Well, one of the things, you saw us, you sat through our juvenile detention issue. To me, this is the way to keep that from being something we have to use, is you create sports programs that bring the entire community together, particularly those that might get lost somewhere, and we bring them early enough to keep that from happening. So all of this works together to make our community better, and that to me is the goal. So, Alderman Sister.
Programming other than sports as well, too, right? Because not all of us are athletic.
Right.
So.
Yes, absolutely.
We could use a bridge.
Yep.
All right. Anything further? Do I have a motion?
I move approval.
All right. I have a motion from Alderman Sistrunk. Do I have a second? Second from Alderman Carver. Thank you, sir. All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to consideration of the adoption of the fiscal year 2021-22 tax millage resolution of 30.13 for the city of Starkville.
Move approval.
I have a motion from Alderman Sistrunk. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Rupp. Any discussion?
Well, we should point out to anyone who still may be tuned in, Lord knows why, but this is not, there's no tax increase for the lot.
Correct. Not related to millage. No further discussion from the board. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That is unanimous. And followed closely by the consideration of the budget of the fiscal year 2021-2022 for the city of Starkville.
Move approval.
I have a motion from Alderman Sistrunk. Do I have a second? Second from Alderman Brooks. Any discussion? Seeing no hands raised, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. It is unanimous.
May I make a comment?
Yes, you may.
I never thought I would live to see the day that the millage rate and the budget was the least contentious item on the agenda.
on an agenda, I understand. Okay, and we've handled item C, so we can move on to item D, which is calling for a public hearing on the adoption of an ordinance to address allowing golf carts or low-speed vehicles to operate on certain public streets. And Alderman Brooks, may I defer to you on this and your interest in doing so?
Sure. The city passed bill, or the governor signed Senate Bill 2605 this past year. From my understanding, there's been numerous golf cart bills put forth over the last several years, and I think, from the best I can determine, a lot of it was due to the electric vehicle credit that was put on golf carts, electric golf carts, fully electric golf carts, an extra $150 to get a tag. So they got this bill in place, and it's signed, and so it basically allows us, the city, to regulate golf carts and low-speed vehicles. There's a provision that differentiates between the two. A golf cart is a vehicle that's 20 miles per hour or less. Low-speed vehicles is 20 to 25 miles per hour. And under this ordinance that we're working on, an individual that owns one of these vehicles, and it would have to be street legal. By that I mean lights and horn, I'm assuming, but anyway, street legal, that get a permit, and the permit would be good for as long as the owner owns that vehicle. So it wouldn't be every year you go back and get a new tag. I have a low-speed vehicle that's tagged, and I tagged $235 this past year. Some of my friends at the Rolling Bulldogs this past weekend, we had a meeting, said that the tag has gone up, so I'm not really sure about that. But that's kind of where we are. And being Ward 4 guy, I'm thinking this would also help me in my parking problem in the Cotton District, because if you went, when we were down at MML, if you happen to go over to Ocean Springs, you might have noticed that there was an actual golf cart rental place right there on Government Street, and you could see golf carts parking, or low-speed vehicles parking nose to tail, two in a single parking place. So to me, I think it's probably something we ought to take a look at.
Okay. Well, and this is just calling for a public hearing. As you know, we'll have 2 public hearings on it, and the ordinance can change as we deem it necessary. And the one that ended up in your packet, for whatever reason, was an early draft that was not actually complete, although there is a more complete and proper draft that might need to be tweaked. But we'll get it to you so that you will have access to it. But since this was just calling for a public hearing, I wasn't too concerned about that. Alderman Carter.
I'm so excited about this.
I've
been trying for years, long ago. Been talking to state representatives. Gone to Peachtree City, Georgia. Gone to Diamond Head, Mississippi. All of them down the East Coast and on the western side of Florida. Big golf cart advocate that have owned for what you're talking about, 10HB, LSB standards. So all that being said, I'm going to cut to the chase. I definitely approve or vote for anything to provide alternative sources of transportation here in Starkville, as long as it's reasonable. Most of the time, they don't cross interstates or state highways, so I don't think anybody should ever cross, in my opinion, I don't think you should cross Highway 12.
Should you cross Highway 12 or beyond Highway 12?
What did I say?
You shouldn't cross Highway 12 or be on
Most
Highway
of the
12?
time, you don't want to cross anywhere that's, most of the ordinances that I've read across the country, you don't want to be on any road with speeds posted over 35 miles an hour. I've never seen that anywhere. Starkville does things on its own accord sometimes. That would be an issue to me, but I will say this, unless something's changed, the tax collector, tax assessor, everything I personally have tagged, will not tag anything unless it's low speed out of the factory. So that's going to say it can't be a golf cart modified unless you talk to Alan Morgan and he's changed his opinion. I've followed him tooth and nail for 10 years over this. He's not going to tag basically a golf cart that I can go to GTO and Matheson and put lights and blinkers and a horn on. He's not going to do it unless you got something I don't have and you can change his opinion. Been round and around that, but he is in support of anything that's low speed, which is can maintain speed of 24.5 miles an hour. There's a reason for that. Lights, blinkers, modified out of the factory, and it has to say LSV on the title. I've tried every which way. That one's pretty firm and how it believes.
It has to have a VIN number versus a serial.
It's got to say 3 letters, LSV on the title, period, unless it changes. And that could be Senate Bill 2605 to change some of his direction. So I don't know. I applaud you. I'm a golf carter.
So. This bill actually allows you to cross state highways. You can cross, but you can't be on state highways and 35 miles per hour and up, or above 35 miles per hour. On the 35 mile per hour street, Wilson Street, you could drive, but not above 30. You could. 35 miles per hour is the cutoff. It has to be below that.
Well, let me just tell you about golf cart users are typically people that are not lawbreakers. They're going to go out and this is happening anyway. A lot of these residential settings, I can go to any, of course, I mean, they have access to the country club for a reason. I don't think people should be ticketed if you're in a residential setting and you're of age driver. And that's another thing I want to talk about. I'm pretty sure that's the reason Mississippi State doesn't allow anymore game days underage drivers where they issue 12-year-olds. I wouldn't let my son drive a golf cart around Main Street. I applaud everything they're doing. So, I yield.
Okay. Alderman Sistrunk, anything from you? No. Alderman Rupp?
Yeah, Mike, if you would clarify, because I know folks in my ward are going to have concerns because they like to take their golf cart from their home up to the swimming pool or to play tennis, but they go straight from the neighborhood, which connects to the country club. So how would that impact them?
I can't answer that question. Are the golf carts, are they street?
No, they're for golf.
But I mean, do they have taillights on them or something that they can?
I imagine some do and some don't.
Yeah. But I would think that the ones that have the lights get the permit. The other ones, I don't know.
Would you? Well, I guess would you have to go? Would you have to have a permit to go half a block to get on the pathway to go to the country?
You already do.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
You already do, because you're not supposed to be on a public street with golf carts.
And I think that's enforcement.
Well, I'm not dragging it. Look at it. I'm not dragging him into this.
Don't listen, Chief.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
We gotta flesh it out.
Alderman Beatty,
No,
nothing?
Mayor, thank you.
No comments, Mayor, thank you. Alderman Vaughn?
No comments, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion for at least calling for the public hearing?
So moved.
All right, a motion from Alderman Sistrunk, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Brooks. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that would be 6, as Alderman Carver has stepped out. And then we have Alderman Beatty. This is consideration of a mask mandate at essential businesses. This was yours on the agenda. Would you like to lead off?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Drop off the essential businesses since we can't do that according to our city council. I just wanted to say that our sister city, Oxford, has done this. They did it for a reason. Their hospital declared a state of emergency, and their chief of staff went to the city meeting and said, if you don't do this, we're just going to blow up and get out of control here. So they did that, called an emergency meeting, special call meeting. What I would say about our community is MSU has already done this. They've already mandated masks in all of their buildings. Dr. Landrum mentioned tonight, I didn't know this, but the local ICU at the Federal County Hospital is full. Alarming thing, even though it's higher than the state average, is the vaccination rate in Occidental County is 44%. That's 56 adults. 56% adults in our county not vaccinated. Children are going to be at risk because of this. In Mississippi last week, one hospital, 4 pregnant women died, and 3 of the babies that were born severely premature. Basically, what we're going to do by not having some mitigation effort in our city with over 55% of our population, our adult population, unvaccinated, is we're going to be turning, and not only in our county, but we could 23,000 students loose on our community that are required to wear a mask when they're in buildings on campus. They're not required to wear a mask when they're in buildings off campus and businesses and things. The Oxford thing, you know, where people go in a restaurant, they sit down and put the mask off, they eat, and put the mask on, and go back out. It's sensible. It's reasonable. From everything I read, it mitigates, lessens the transmission of this virus, which right now with this highly contagious Delta variant or whatever, we need that. Particularly the fact that the vaccination rates in Mississippi are going up. They're not going up very fast, though. So I would say that as a board, as a city, we need to consider this. And if you would like, I think that it would be proper if no decision would be made tonight, or maybe we're premature and do it tonight, but would be to let's monitor the data on our infection rates and the number of people contracting this stuff, number of hospitalizations and things in the next 2 weeks from now in the second meeting in September. And I would suggest that if infection rates do not start to go down, and we see, you know, some positive indicators on that, if they stay flat or they start to go up, that we probably would need to revisit this with the possibility of installing at least from week to week or meeting to meeting a mandate for masks inside businesses in public places in the city of Starkville.
Okay, all right, thank you. So as it stands right now, what you would like us to do is monitor data, and we certainly can do that, and we can track it. We can use HR and Excel spreadsheets and all of the data that's out there to track it and see what it looks like as we move forward.
And it's probably not detrimental on businesses, and may even help in some instances where somebody feels more comfortable in being in a business where everybody's got a mask on in that particular business. It may help the business out. So I mean, it's something that we probably need to take a look at, and I would suggest that we monitor the situation between now and the next meeting, and then come back and let's address it at that time.
Okay, all right. Alderman Vaughn, any thoughts?
No, ma'am.
Okay, Vice Mayor, any?
No comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Brooks?
Just agree with him.
Thank you.
Alderman Rupp? Alderman Sistrum?
I think that's a prudent course of action.
Okay, Alderman Carter? Okay, well, that being said, no action to be taken, but I will direct ma'am to keep a good close eye and a monitor on the numbers that we'll be looking at. Okay, and last but not least, as it relates to board business, we have discussion of ARPA funds, and this again, Alderman Beatty, was yours, if you'd like to lead.
Mayor, I read through the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, and then on into the ARPA, which is American Recovery Plan Act, acronym for that. But in looking at that, the 4 bullet points that are stressed in this thing, and it's got a lot of leeway, and they say in the bill that Congress said there was discretion and leeway in it, and leaves a lot of control to states and things like that. But U.S. Treasury is launching this, it says, launching this much-needed relief to bullet 1, support urgent COVID-19 response efforts to continue to decrease the spread of the virus and bring the pandemic under control. Second is the bullet is to replace lost revenue for eligible state, local, territorial, and tribal governments to strengthen support for vital public services and help attain jobs. Third bullet is support immediate economic stabilization for households and businesses. 4, address systematic public health and economic challenges that have contributed to the unequal impact of the pandemic. Down further, the next paragraph it says, and I've highlighted this, these funds can also be used to make necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Now, cities, we never have enough money for water sewer infrastructure. It's something we spend, we issue bonds on. We've got some sources of revenue in our water sewer department. We've got this MA money that comes to the state and the city every year and stuff. This kind of fell in our laps after the coronavirus thing. Our general fund of our city, according to Alderman Sistrunk, has been stabilized. We have some pressing needs in our city for water and sewer infrastructure replacement. One of them was brought to our attention by the gentleman from Northgate, Reverend Rambo from the Northgate subdivision, where they have had constant issues with brown water in the neighborhood. I mean, monthly, right? I have had several residents that have sent me videos and have talked, they told me about this, and we thought, I don't know what I thought at first, it might have been the construction of these neighborhoods to the south and west of your, or south of your, but apparently there's something going on up there. And I've got Mr. Kemp in the room as our director of our utilities department, who could probably shed some light on this. But apparently that line is the end of our line, our major water line. We may extend on out and meter off and sell to some of that rural water system north of the 4-lane highway. But our water system goes into that neighborhood and makes a loop, and that's it. I don't know whether that has something to do, but we're having these residents are having prevalent issues in their neighborhood with brown water. And y'all, there's nothing more basic to life than clean potable water and the certainty that when you turn on your tap, that the water's going to be clean to drink, clean to bathe with, clean to wash your clothes with. And this is an ongoing issue. It hadn't gone away. It's not going away. And so I asked Mr. Kemp and Mr. Forrester and everything to kind of come up with some kind of idea of potentially just in ballpark terms of what the cost would be to do some work in that neighborhood to, what do they call that, not balloon, what's the term where you?
Mr. Kemp, if you would come up so we can
talk.
I don't want to get too far afield because this is I think at some point a work session on ARPA would be a good thing.
I think so, but just kind of hit the high spots, Mayor. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand exactly the question.
I think he was asking Mr. Kemp about what it would take to reduce the brown water instances in this particular area.
Well, I'm really not sure exactly. I've got a good answer for it. I think we've talked in general terms. There is a pocket up into the north park area we're talking about. Some of the residents mentioned that tonight. I think a lot of that may be the fact is that we're operating valves now in a proactive way to flush out that system. We're looking at maybe adding a line section. I think I heard you reference that. That's always, but also trying to clean out some of the existing lines. I think capacity seems to be fine up there. There are a few spots that appear to be kind of dead-ended where the sediment gets into it, and when the system really churns, it stirs it up a little bit more than other parts of the town. And that was probably evidenced more recently when we had that big problem down in South Montgomery. We dropped a lot of the water. So I suspect a lot of places in town saw a little bit of discoloration at that time. But to answer your question, I think we've done some preliminary work, and it could be even $300,000, $400,000 for some water lines if that were to fix. But we're still in that early investigative part of that. But that's where we would start.
One of the costs, or one of the project things of this would be to bring water in a loop or a source from off another line where you flush you've got water coming from more than one direction and potential for flushing in that line, where most of the other parts of the city, we have that, right?
Yes, sir. And maybe I missed your point earlier, because that's exactly right. If you get a dead end line, you're wanting to create another exit a place where you got more flow, more constant flow in that higher pressure. Well, I say pressure, we've got good pressure everywhere. It's just a higher volume of flow that goes through that. It's used more often. So that would be what we would do. It's kind of like electric system. You want multiple sources to come in.
There's one source, you got another. One other thing was that I've been told by the people, engineers and fire people and stuff, that in a place that's kind of a dead end area, that when you have static pressure at a fire plug, and if you don't have water from another source, when you open your fire plug, your residual pressure, what it goes down to, can sometimes be lower than if you had water coming from another source.
It could be, and I'll let the fire chief talk about that. I do know that we test all of our fire department, all of our hydrants all the way around town, and although it's only in, you're still looking for constant pressure on that station. So to my knowledge, we don't have a problem with fire protection up in that area, but here again, I'm going by, I think what the chief normally does on their fire tests, those are done pretty often.
Mayor, thank you.
But let me, excuse me, I would just say too that I think that whole area is under investigation right now because we see some problems. We're not sure exactly what the cause is, and we'd like to get a little better handle on exactly what a solution might be before we come back to the board.
I appreciate that very much. So with the urgency of this and the quality of water and the situation we're in and stuff, I guess the next thing would be to have a working meeting for this to be on the table and some other things that might be potential expenditures for some of that ARPA money.
I would suggest perhaps if you'll let me, I'll work on scheduling a work session next week.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right.
Kim, thank
I'll
you.
send out an email and we'll get together at a time.
Reverend Rambo, we're gonna start moving.
Thank you, Mr. Kim.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Did you need something, Mr. Kim?
No, not to Mr. Kemp. I got a couple questions when you get to me about this ARPA money.
Well, we'll have a work session. We'll have a work session next week, and we could.
Will it be public?
Yeah. Anything
because
we do.
Some of the public are concerned about, where did these funds originate from? How did the city obtain these funds? That's the question they want to know.
Okay, well, it's coming, I can answer that one real quick. It's coming from the state, from the feds to the state to us.
Okay.
So it's part of the ARPA that was that $1 trillion or $1.2 trillion ARPA money, American Relief Plan. So it came to us, but it had to go through the state because we're not big enough. If we were a city over 50,000, it would come directly to the city, but it had to go through the state and then to us. We got half of it this year. We'll get the next half of it next year.
Okay, what did we do to acquire these funds? Did we do anything that acquired these funds? They just came from the government?
No, it just came to us by virtue of, it went to every municipality. West Point got like 300,000. The county got 10 million. Our county, Duval County got 10 million. So no, it just was allocated based on population from the federal calculation or estimation or whatever it was they used, but population mostly.
Okay, and another question, does these funds require premium pay for our essential employee workers?
No.
It doesn't, but does it require?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Does these funds require premium pay for our essential employee workers?
There is no requirement, no. I think there is. It can, but there's no requirement.
Have we had anyone in need for these funds since it's been going on?
Not that I'm aware of. We have paid them. We paid them all with the exception of those we furloughed. Everybody's been paid.
Okay.
So they've gotten their normal. Once we've got past the furlough, and if you recall, during that furlough time frame last year, they were getting more in some cases than they had gotten when they were working for the city.
These some questions came back up from some of the people in public. Okay, one more. Why are we spending some more money down at Cornerstone when we already got money allocated from the legislature when we increased the 1% sales tax? Why are we creating more money, spending more money at the Cornerstone?
That was to provide those extra 2 fields that would make it more of a tournament facility that would bring us back the 2% and 1% additional funding that then Meals More and More. So that was the goal, was to set us up to be able to do large tournaments that we couldn't do with 10. But with 12 fields, we can do tournaments with 100+ teams, which we could not do with 10. So that was the goal, was to create that recurring source of food and beverage tax money to generate more and more. I mean, the goal is to obviously grow the tourism elements to the community, which then grows the 2% and 1%, which allows us to spend more on parks.
But that's a loop, right, Mayor? I mean, that money's in a loop. It doesn't go out and end up in general funds on regular general expenditures.
No.
That all loops back into Parks and Rec. So in other words, it'll benefit the Parks and Rec Parks and Rec system, but it doesn't ever filter outside of that. It just that money loops. People spend it, increase tax. People come over and spend, increase tax, and it goes right back to Parks and Rec.
Well, actually not. There's 10% that comes to the city general fund. There's 40% that goes to parks by virtue of the legislation. This other 1% goes to parks and Cornerstone. But there's 10% of that original 2% that does come to the general fund. It also goes to CVB and OCEDA and, the Student Association who came and had their budget approved by us tonight.
But the one, I'm talking about the 1% that's supposed to serve the debt
Yes, the
fund. That's just
1%.
going to let loose.
Yes, that's correct.
It goes to all parks, right?
Yes, sir.
No.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Harden, have we received some of that money? ARPA money? How much do we have? So we received some 2.1 million. We have a special revenue fund, a special revenue fund. Okay.
And the next 3 should come to us in, June or July of next year? Okay. All right, so I'll call a work session from that. So anything further before we move on to the last item on the agenda? Okay. Claims docket. Do I have a motion? A motion. Alderman Carver, Alderman Rupp, was that a second from you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yes, sir.
One additional thing before we leave. I was asked about, we have one additional thing. The group that came and spoke about the Capitol Street Apartments, asked that if I have the board make a motion or approve a resolution to create an ad hoc committee, city-created committee to examine solutions to housing insecurity and homelessness in Starkville and Octavia County. Would the board so choose to do that? This would be probably, the people that we would choose would be, there's MSU faculty who are studying homelessness and evictions and persons. Starkville Strong would be some of the strong people would be candidates, and some of the faith community stuff. But we probably could find people to serve on this if the board so chose to create this ad hoc committee.
Mayor, there's no agenda item on that. I object to that being brought up.
Okay, all right. We can, Alderman Beatty, you and I can visit about that offline. How about that? Okay. All right, that ends our open session.
Claims docket.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I got a motion. Oh, I didn't get a vote? I'm sorry.
Yes, you did. She
Okay,
was on.
sorry, thank you. I so often don't fulfill my obligation on that. So that ends our open session. We now need to go into a closed determination session to see if there is a need for executive session. So if we could clear the room, please. And I anticipate this being a very short exercise. So prior to attend. Notice should be provided of this work session within 1 hour of this meeting by posting such notice at City Hall, which will be made a part of the minutes of the board meeting. It will be an open public meeting, and the public and press are invited to attend. Do I have a motion to recess?
So moved.
I have a motion to recess from Alderman Vaughn. Do I have a second? I think I heard Alderman Rupp again. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are in recess. Thank you, everyone.
Everybody have a good night.
9:30.